Good morning, everyone. When the music stops, that means something. So maybe I'll take your seats. We're at the appointed hour. Wonderful to see such a nice crowd here this morning. Welcome all. Let me begin with our land acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather and which the region of Peel operates is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples inhabited and cared for this land and continue to do so today. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Ojibwe-Chippewa peoples, the land that is home to the Métis, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are grateful to have this opportunity to work on this land and by doing so give our respect to its first inhabitants. Okay, first up, I have roll call. All members are present except Vice Chair Samita Kohli, who is away on personal business. Otherwise, we rarely do not see her at these functions and at the board meeting. Declarations of conflict of interest with regards to the Ontario Provincial Police section of our agenda. Seeing none. Approval of the minutes. Mr. Boughton, if you would approve them. Mr. Carby, second. All those in favor? That is carried. New business. First item up, item 2, OPP 2024, fourth quarter operational statistics and analysis. Perhaps over to Natalie Major, Detachment Commander, you and your team. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board and to the gallery. It's my pleasure to attend today's meeting. I have already submitted our Q4 reports that have been submitted, and as previous to the last meeting, if there are any questions in regards to those statistics, I'm more than happy to discuss. I know there are a number of presentations today on your agenda. We've been slotted for 10 minutes, and I did bring a special guest star here as well from General Headquarters from Aurelia, and it's Mr. Aaron South. And he will also be talking, he's our project manager for Digital Evidence Management and Recorded Patrol Project. And I'd like to bring it over to him unless there's anything to be brought forward regarding.
So why don't we deal with them in order? Does anybody have any questions on the statistical analysis that we've been provided? Mr. Boughton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Commander, nice to see you again. On the last, I guess the last page, which is referrals to victim service agencies by occurrence type. And I don't have a page number, but it's on the back. It's the last page of your report, or the second last page of your report. 100 on the domestic disturbance, 126, but only 36 accepted the referral. On the assault, 87, and only 29 accepted. Those stats accurate?
Through the chair, thank you, Mr. Broughton, for your question. So yes, this is dependent on our plugin that we have in our records management system. So anytime one of our officers attend a domestic or intimate partner violence occurrence, and at times there is an assault that's involved, we do encourage them to connect with, and we provide resources for victim services. And if they wish to accept, then that gets entered into the report. So this is something new that you are seeing on the reports as part of the Community Safety Policing Act and value for money. And this is more of a consistent and transparent report to police service boards. And this is the information that's extracted from the occurrences that you see about the victim and trauma-based approach.
So, so there's an occurrence, and there's your officers on site. Do they physically give them a card? They give them a phone number? Do they? How does that work? Because to me, the number that are accepting the referral is 30%. it's and 70% are walking away having been assaulted or an IPV situation. So can you just help me on how that victim is given information and what format is written down on a piece of paper? How does it work?
Through the chair, Mr. Broughton, so there are various ways of supplying that information through reference cards, writing it down, even online information. The one thing is this is at the time, so remember, this may not be accurate in the fact of after the fact, that it could be a day, a week later, that member could, in fact, without our knowledge, reach out to these resources. And if you'd like, for a presentation in the future, I'd be more than happy to we have a domestic abuse investigator at our detachment in Caledon who could come and even talk a little bit about that for future conversation.
Okay, I think that would be through you, Chair. I think that would be useful if we had that. And I know, having been on the board of victim services, and where they are in Peel, where would be the victim services that you're referring? Somebody's being assaulted or domestic dispute. Where would be the place that they would be referred to? Would it be in Brampton, or is it anything in Caledon?
I don't have the list in front of me, sorry, through the chair, I don't have the list in front of me. However, we do have resources available within the town of Caledon, and yes, also in Brampton. So I would say, all in all, in the region of Peel. And we work very closely with them. Additionally, we have a mental crisis response team. We work with crisis counselors that are part of region of Peel, that they also, you never know when you even attend a mental health call, that resources are provided as well. So there's a number of different support systems that we have, certainly a lot more now than years ago. Again, I would say we encourage and we try to empower our victims as much as possible, but in the end, they are the ones that have to take that step to get additional support. We do the best that we can for them.
Commander,
Okay,
and Al,
through you,
if I
Chair,
could-
and if we could do
I think you're really
going ahead, because I think of somebody in Caledon who are, maybe a little bit out in the country and aren't in a close urban environment like there might be in Brampton. It could be difficult, if it's something that's happened there.
And now what
I think that,
your
Chair,
first thought, I think, is the right one. Why don't we have this come back as excellent line of questioning, Al, and get a more fulsome report, have the appropriate person here for our next meeting. And with that, Al, if there's no other questions with regards to the quarterly analysis provided, I'm going to have you move it, Mr. Khan second it, and we will receive it. Thank you with that direction for our next meeting, and good on you, Al, for bringing that up. That moves us to item 2, which I think you introduced, what's new in OPP technology. So again, Commander, back over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Aaron South, the project manager for Ontario Provincial Police Digital Evidence Management and Recorded Patrol Project. And I asked him to come here today because the OPP has been, as well as my partners here with Peel Regional Police, there is an abundance of technology now that is available to our uniform members. And I thought that it would be fantastic to have him come here to highlight some of the technology resources that we utilize. So I'm going to pass it over to Aaron. Thanks.
Good morning. That's very much my whole introduction right there. That was perfect. I've been with the OPP for about 8 years, and I've been on this project since we began it in the OPP about 4 years ago. We began with a pilot in East Region with all of our technology. So that was in-car camera, body-worn camera, phones for frontline with all of our officers, and ALPR. So we're now in the process of transitioning that out to the entire province, and I'll touch on a few of those here. So the body-worn camera, that is kind of the centerpiece of all of this. It began in East Region and with a limited deployment in our west of about 1,000 devices in total. Since then, we're now moving with the new Axon Body 4 camera to Central Region, which affects Caledon. We've so far, since the beginning of February, brought out about 600 new devices in Central Region, with Caledon being one of those detachments coming online. The main goals here is to increase officer and public safety. It increases that accountability on both sides, absolutely. It helps in any kind of accountability and in complaints as well. But it's also a fantastic source of that first-party evidence that people need to see. With that being a fairly new rollout, there's some others that have been going in Caledon for a little bit longer. So our in-car cameras, they're with the same vendor. They're a combination of automated license plate readers and in-car camera systems. I'll talk a little bit about the ALPR in a minute, but we are currently the largest fleet active with Axon in the world at this point. We're up to about 1,750 vehicles, and that is still growing with new deployments happening this week. We just finished another set of deployments in our Northeast region. Again, it is often our best evidence, especially traffic-related offenses, things like that. And it's been extremely useful in any SIU, PSB investigations, things like that as well. So massive, massive moves forward. We have cameras in the front of the vehicle and into the rear where people would be sitting. So to bring that one back to the Caledon side of things, and it's your favorite slide. Just to give an idea of what these cameras are capturing out the front of the vehicles, this was for a traffic complaint involving, I believe the complaint was around transport trucks. Just to give an idea of the quality of evidence that it can pull in, the cameras are high definition, they're fish angle, and they even have buffers of 30 seconds. So when they're activated, they drop back 30 seconds to ensure whatever caused that activation is captured as well. So it's extremely useful technology. And in this case, I didn't go with our most interesting in-car camera videos, but it is a very good sampling of what they can do.
So just in this video here, Chair, and to the board, this is a fairly recent traffic complaint that we received. One of my traffic unit members captured this, so it provides that, as they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And I'm actually working with our partners at Peel Regional Police and York Regional Police, as this location is actually at all our boundary lines. And as you see with the amount of commercial motor vehicle traffic, how is one to safely proceed on that laneway when you have vehicles that are parked waiting to gain entrance into a business? So I thought this would be an appropriate clip just to show you about the quality and information that can be gathered on this in-car camera.
On that note, it is a combined piece of technology. It also is the system that we use for our automatic license plate recognition system. Originally, we were with Vigilant as the OPP, and we had about 30 vehicles deployed with the Vigilant system. All of our in-car camera-enabled vehicles have ALPR now, so our fleet has grown massively in that capacity. And we are also the keepers of the MTO and CPIC hot list, converting all that information over so the cameras know which plates they're looking for and making those comparisons. So extremely useful piece of technology that makes things work very well for us. In the sample in the picture as well, the cameras are extremely good at pulling out information. I've seen it pull actual license plates off of vehicles on harder angles to see than that. So it really assists our officers with finding the right vehicles and using the right course of action.
And just before Chair and to the board, to advise you of a fairly recent incident where the ALPR camera was a tremendous tool for us to use. I just wanted to highlight, at a time, I used to work at our Provincial Operations Center. So it's not just about putting a license plate on, say, if it's a stolen vehicle, but for our marginalized persons out there, perhaps there is a missing person. Their license plate can also be added onto this system. So as a vehicle, as you saw in the previous clip, an officer can just be driving along and that camera is scanning all the time and will get a tone read to them, and that potentially could be a hit. So it's not just involved in crimes. It's also, I found in my experience, in trying to locate people for medical or missing. It's a tremendous tool to use. And all of our vehicles in our fleet have this. And this just brings it to what just happened. And I will tell you, as of February 13th, the platoon that were involved in this call, we're pretty much on a high. But on February 13th in the afternoon at around 2 o'clock, one of my sergeants was actually on proactive patrol in the town of Caledon between Mayfield Road and Centerville Creek Road. And an alert popped up on his ALPR system advising that a vehicle was stolen. And the vehicle was later located on Aloe Vera Street in Brampton. Without getting into all of the details, there was a short foot pursuit, and 3 males from Vaughan, Oakville, and Toronto were arrested on a number of charges, which are on the screen there. So this is just an example of the tremendous work that can be done with this technology. And not only that is just the innovative policing that we can do within our boundaries as well.
And then the last area I wanted to touch on was digital evidence management itself. That is the backbone to all of this technology through Axon. That is what we use to house and store all of our digital information, or the majority of it at this point. But we have about 6,000 active users now in the OPP, which improves all of our timelines for turnaround. It removes a lot of those barriers that slow down the evidence disclosure process for us, being such a large organization. It also includes a lot of our redaction tools as well, and is slowly taking over all of that digital evidence and disclosure mechanism to MAG and to other groups. Last count, I looked yesterday, I believe we're over 10 million individual pieces of evidence at this point. So ours is growing very quickly, daily, especially with the rollout of body-worn cameras. And I did put a picture of my dog in because that's important to everything I put up in front of people, so. One of the big benefits that we had that came from the East region, and this was not an original part of the rollout, it just kind of happened organically with officers and in the communities in the East region, is the community portal and the Axon Capture tool. It's an app on the phone. It lets people take, there's a sample of it on the left side there, photo, video, or audio evidence from any mobile device, as well as it allows us to reach out to members of the community to gather evidence. So it reduces driving time, it makes conversion of files and loss of physical media, anything like that, mostly a thing of the past for us. And Caledon is actually a fantastic example of this. And I'll just put the example on the board. We have what's called the public portal, and it lets you create a large URL that can be put out through Twitter, through any social media feeds, even a QR code that someone canvassing door to door can have someone scan on their device. It gives them a secure portal to send in evidence directly to our evidence management system. And someone that can then triage and categorize all of that evidence as needed for us. Caledon this was a pilot part of our project. Caledon is one of the main users, and I reached out to one of the detective constables who had used it, and within about 10 seconds, I got this email back from him. So I won't go through the whole thing, but he is a massive proponent of it and had a lot to say on the spot, ready to go. So it's made his job much easier and much more effective.
And that's one of my team members, Detective Constable Rohit Rahul, who currently right now is working on a joint project with Peel Regional Police on an extortion project. And in speaking with him, he celebrates that this is an opportunity for community to work with police. In this case, this was in regards to a couple of homicide investigations and one attempted murder investigation. The amount of information that is being collected is outstanding. Also, just on another note, again, this is a crime piece that he mentions here, but during my time when I worked with Collingwood and the Town of Blue Mountains Detachment, we had a member that went missing. It was a medical issue. And there is something called the CamSafe program, which again, it's about exactly what my friend Aaron talked about, in that a number of people have like Ring door cameras, right? They're able to dump their video that they have, which can pinpoint, for instance, in the case that I'm speaking of, when was the last time like this person was observed, what direction were they traveling, which assists with the search for that individual, which was of great assistance.
And in the interest of time, there's a lot of other things coming and new from CTSB, which is the bureau that I'm in, Communication Technology Services Bureau. I won't go into all, and I'm not the expert on some by any means, but I did put up a list if anyone's interested. Those are other things that are starting to come down the pipe from us. If that's another speaker that comes in, or you have questions, by all means, if they come through Calton Detachment or to myself, that's absolutely fine. I will mention it's at the bottom. AI technology, because it is a major issue and a major conversation for a lot. A lot of these technologies do include portions of AI. None of it is generative. It is all done with human oversight. There's a lot of advances coming in that from Axon and other makers at this point. So it's one that we absolutely have our eye on. But it is, for example, part of what reconstructs the license plate photos in all of the ALPR technology. So we work with partners who are very cautious around their approach to that, and the OPP itself is also very cautious on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions at this time, Mr. Carby.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. Very detailed. My interest is always piqued around how we can use technology to solve problems and create efficiency. So I'm interested very much in the report you have presented today. One of the things I just wanted to zero in on a little bit, though, is around the ALPR and that specific piece of technology and how the impact. Now, on your report, it talked about impact generally of providing more evidence for investigators and stuff like that. But from a community standpoint, impact is going to be measured more around, well, how many lives saved, how many people were apprehended as a result. Is there any data that you can provide that helps us zero in on the specific impact that this is having from a community safety standpoint and how it's actually impacting the community for implementing that specific piece of technology?
Through the chair, absolutely. Thank you for the question. That is one of the things that I really struggle with for an actual. Here are the numbers that accompany this. A lot of the evidence is anecdotal, and those stories of the vehicle getting picked up 3 hours from where they were last seen, and it's changed the entire police response. But those are stats that we are still struggling to put forward. So I would love to give you a number and say, here is the exact number and increase that we've seen, but it is anecdotal at this time.
So
my apologies.
A work in progress then.
Yeah, absolutely. This is all very new ground that we've gone into, and our understanding around any of the body-worn evidence, all of those processes is trying to catch up with what was a massive leap forward in a lot of technology at the same time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Boughton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I think of the saying, preaching to the converted, right? And this board believes so much in the technology. One of the great things that we found from using BWCs and DEMS and all the things that you've talked about, and I'm just pulling this from the report, this beautiful sentence that we see all the time now. The entire incident was captured on BWC. And this has been so helpful to us, and I would be remiss if I didn't say Deputy Chief Anthony O'Doherty, who's the one who drove this at PRP and did a fabulous job along with the chief. But it's because of you being a leader that we're all in on this, and it's incredible. And when you look at this one, and we call them the pink pages, when I look at an incident with one of our officers on April the 22nd, 2024, cleared on August the 20th, 2024. The entire incident was captured on BWC. And it works both ways. This is a knife that cuts both ways. It protects the public, it protects our officers, and the truth comes out. So what you're doing, I commend you. Obviously, as a resident of Caledon, I think it's the best technology. One of the best things, Chair, that we've done as a board, and we've sat on the board together for 6 years. One of the best things we've done, as fast as you can have it implemented. The results are there, and you'll be really pleased on a going forward basis. So a job well done. Aaron, thanks for the presentation, and to you, Commander, always nice to have you here.
Thank you. And Al well said. What I would add is it's an old adage in politics. It's not just what you do, it's what you're seen to be doing. And funding these initiatives costs taxpayers quite a great deal. And as the chief knows, I always say, when do we see the technology dividend? That's why I welcome you here today, because you're speaking to the technology dividend and what we're reaping, the rewards. It's a marvelous presentation. We also want to include NG 911 and what we've done on call times with the same technology here, overwhelming. And then taxpayers and the public at large can feel like something's getting done in a very positive way and being accounted for around this table. So very, very well done. Commander, if there's nothing further, at your end.
Chair, I just wanted to mention the point that Mr. Boughton advised about clearance of officers, say in Special Investigations Unit cases or police service or professional service or professional standards. When our cameras were being implemented in our fleet, I will say and it rolls out at whatever pace it is. Our members at Caledon Detachment were like racing for the vehicles that have the cameras in them. So if that gives you any indication that it is very much welcomed by our membership, because it is a tool that is protecting them as well and the public.
And thank you. And I'm going to follow up on that comment because I know our colleagues are well aware. And I want to acknowledge President Adrian Woolley and our CEO, Trevor, our owner of our PRP are here. Remember, there might have been worldwide when this technology was coming out, I won't say reticence, but not understanding on the part of the enforcement community what it meant. We embraced it, and the number of officers saying this is just as good for us as the evidence just cited now speak, as it is to protecting the public as well. So it's been an incredible win-win. So very well said. With that, Al, I'm going to have you and Mr. Carby move receipt of the presentation. Thank you very much for your time. And with that other report to come back, as we said. And before I conclude, I was also remiss in not acknowledging that apparently Mr. Hank Zare is here on behalf, or the Inspector of Policing, on behalf of representing the Inspector General. Hank, welcome, and good to have you here. With that, if there's no other matters before us regarding the OPP, I will ask for adjournment from Mayor Brown and from Mr. Carby. All those in favor, that is carried. Thank you very much for your presentation today. Okay, and that immediately takes us into our formal Police Board Services meeting for the February 28. Indigenous Language Monument we've dealt with. Roll call. All members are present except Member Samita Kohli, who is away on personal business. But she did want me to acknowledge that on the 8th of March, it's International Women's Day, and she hopes to attend events as she always does on behalf of the PRP. So thank you. Are there any declarations of conflict from any of my colleagues on this agenda? Seeing none, Chief, I go to you for your update, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair and Board and members. I do have a couple updates as well as Deputy O'Duarty and DePat. But I did want to say publicly that there's almost two pieces. One is to thank you and the Board for your efforts and the letter which Chair and the Board issued to the Prime Minister and Public Safety Canada and Minister of Justice regarding our interests here in Peel as it pertains to vulnerabilities that are related to the border. And, you know, I think we in Peel, whether it's been auto theft, firearms, violent offenders, drugs on our street, you know, vulnerabilities at the border manifest themselves in communities. And I think, you know, I just want to thank you for issuing the letter, which created a platform for engagement. So, Rob, Mr. Serpe, thank you for your efforts and the content of that letter. That was issued February 6th to the federal government, and February 19th, Minister McGuinty arranged a meeting with us at Peel Police Headquarters and the deputies to speak to potential solutioning, which we have recommendations for that obviously vacillate between resourcing here, not just at the airport, the intermodal logistics, places that have a gateway from the border right into our community. And so as a result of that, in addition to our role with the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police and Major City Chiefs, myself and the OPP Commissioner had an opportunity to travel to Ottawa this week to meet Canada's new Commissioner assigned to deal with fentanyl, Kevin Brasseau, as well as the Public Safety Minister and the RCMP Commissioner. The discussions were quite varied, but also trying to provide context to what type of contributions we can have from a municipal, provincial, and federal level to strengthen the discussions on borders. So I'm pleased to say that we as a team are pulling together a set of recommendations which we'd be pleased to share with the board that can continue to advocate for localized solutions, whether it be, the fatal or non-fatal overdoses that we see right across our region that are fentanyl related. We also know that every 30 hours we're seizing an illegal firearm here on the streets of Peel, and over 90% of it are traced back unlawfully to the U.S. And then we continue to see, auto theft. Although the percentages have decreased, we know these are vulnerabilities at the ports. So there is a linkage for us here in Peel, and there's an extension to everything that we see on the streets and our officers do. So thank you again, and I'd be remiss not to acknowledge that it's created a gateway for us to have conversations. Deputy Malevich, anything to top up based on that as well? But thank you for that opportunity, Chair. And subject to that, I do want to have Deputy O'Doherty provide an update on our records checks.
Good morning, and through the chair, Police Services Board, and in fact, the public will know that over the last many years, when you come to Peel Regional Police and request a criminal records check, you are likely waiting up into about 6 weeks. And it's unacceptable. It manifests itself in complaints, which is not the real issue. The issue is allowing people to obtain a records check so they could gain gainful employment, continue their volunteer services, and otherwise help in the community. Many thanks to Superintendent Heather Raymore of our Record Services has put together a strategic plan, and we can report in the last 2 months we are now down to essentially same-day service. I do not encourage members of the public to wait for the day before, the same day, for the service of their records check, but however, we seem to have combined technology with staffing to alleviate the pressures and get personalized service at our bureaus. That's my update. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy DePatt.
Thank you, Chief, and through you, Chair. Good morning, board members. I just wanted to report that, first of all, thank you to the board and to our ministry for supporting the hiring of 300 new sworn officers for 2025. This is the largest hiring campaign in the history of Peel Regional Police. It's no small task. You may hear that we've dubbed this as Project 300, and the reason being is we've dedicated resources to the recruiting, outreach, and training efforts to ensure that those that we hire are onboarded successfully and provided the best-in-class training and equipment. I'm happy to tell you that we have officers at the college right now, and we recently were informed that we received all 80 seats that we requested, and those recruit constables will be starting next month. We're well on our way to hiring that 300 mark, and I just wanted to acknowledge the teams in recruiting and training led by Superintendent Hewison for all of their hard work. Thank you very much.
And Chair, if I could just top that up, we probably use this opportunity as a platform if there are people watching this online that we are hiring. And I do want to acknowledge that the board and President Woolley and the association's efforts to make sure that we are an appealing organization to come to and get looked after. I want to thank you all for that opportunity. That's part of our pitch to people, right? I think as a growing community, to have people come here and want to work here because the culture, identity, and the look and feel of PRP is one which we want people to come. And we are striving to be different, make changes. So it's encouraging to see that, we're getting the seats at the police college. So this is an ongoing project throughout the year, but we'll be happy to keep you updated. You'll also see that we will be having a marketing campaign that's very, I think oriented to the type of demographics that we're appealing to. So you'll start seeing that at a variety of different places, bus stations and social media, et cetera.
I guess I just wanted to top up that on top of the new constables that are coming to Peel for all the variety of reasons why they would want to join Peel Regional Police, we're also getting an incredible amount of interest from experienced officers. And I'll note that we swore in 5 officers earlier this month. Those 5 officers went through a very short onboarding process, but they bring a combined 38 years of experience to policing that the community will be feeling immediately. Thank you.
Mayor Brown.
Yeah, just one comment. I have to say, the record checks, the way you've turned it around so quickly is absolutely incredible. This was a pain point in the community. So many phone calls about how it affected employment, particularly for students. So there's a lot of jobs that require that record check, and where it was actually affecting the ability to start. I know any problem you throw at Deputy O'Dwyer, he fixes. He did that with 911. But I don't think any of us thought it would be fixed this quickly. And I know the reason we were in this position was a lot of work was downloaded on you in terms of record checks that were required by the province, but just so impressed by this and just want to say how grateful we are.
Thank you, Omar.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to share that I had the honor of attending the recent swearing-in ceremony for the 5 experienced officers that joined Peel Regional Police. These experienced officers bring with them years of policing experience from other services, and we're fortunate to have them join our ranks. Their expertise and leadership will strengthen our ability to serve the community, and I want to personally welcome them to Peel. A special thank you to Chief Nish and the recruitment unit for their continued efforts in ensuring we attract top talent to our organization. We're building a stronger and more dynamic police service, and these experienced hires are key to that effort. Also, I wanted to provide some remarks on behalf of Vice Chair Coley, who is unable to be here today. She wanted to extend her heartfelt congratulations to the 57 phenomenal new recruits who have officially joined the ranks of Peel Regional Police at our recent recruit graduation, which is a significant milestone, not only for these officers, but for the entire organization, again, as we continue to grow and evolve to meet the needs of our community. She wanted to ensure that I recognize and thank the chief, the entire command team, and especially the Peel Police recruitment team for their exceptional work in bringing in a diverse and dedicated group of new officers. Their efforts ensure that Peel remains a leader in progressive community-focused policing, and I just want to say congratulations to all the new officers. We look forward to seeing all of them in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chief, if I could, on behalf of the board, and just because we have such a great audience here today, I really appreciate your comments and these updates, because we're learning more and more, especially having coming through our budget process, that we're well aware of what we do and the great work that we do, but sometimes the public just isn't aware and they just go by the headlines. But you touched upon so many points today. We talk about the border and the challenges of the border, and we're doing a much better job, and some of it is out of our control. But as much as some might be concerns about drugs going north, we have far more guns coming upwards. The drugs going south, the guns coming north, and the people that perpetuate the crime. I recall, and we came up during our budget as well, I read a lot of data. You may recall a little while ago there was the rail strike in Canada, and in one day the federal government stepped in and stopped the rail strike, and their argument was $1 billion of goods a day go on the rails across Canada. And I went and checked the data, and it was $1 billion a day. And I go, that's interesting, because in the region of Peel in one day, $2.2 billion of cargo on transport trucks in the airport go through a day. Think about that. Everything that's transported across Canada in the rails in one day, we do double in Peel by ourselves, and all of the challenges that that raises. We have an international airport. A lot of folks don't have an international airport. Incidents happen at international airports that we're going to a little bit more about, and we've got to be ready for that. And then the growth, one of the most interesting ones. Chief, you were there. We were there when we presented in Halifax. And in my opening comments, I tend to do my homework. I said, Halifax, I didn't know you were 500,000 people. If I came back every year for 5 years and took 100,000 of you, that's how many people are coming to Peel every year. It blew the mayor away. He goes, you're absorbing all of Halifax in 5 to 6 years. Yeah, just a side gig for us on top of the growth that we're going to have as the fastest growing region in North America. Last one I want to touch upon is recruiting, because more of my colleagues at council followed up on a point that I made that they were unaware of, that how unusual the policing model is. Teaching model's somewhat the same in Ontario. You could be the finest real estate agent in downtown Toronto or the finest lawyer in downtown Toronto and maybe make $1 million a year. If you went to Kapuskasing or Timmins, hard to think their greatest lawyer or greatest real estate agent makes $1 million a year. Different context. If you're the finest officers here and you go up there, you make just about the same. But the down payment on your home here pays for your house up there. And quality of life and maybe less challenges on a Friday night. That is the challenge that we have. And yet, because of our PRPA and the individuals that we have and the service, people still are attracted to us. But we're losing as many because of attrition, and people are getting to an age in the life cycle where it's time for them to move on. And I commend this board and council for saying, we've got to really have a hiring push because we are going to need them. And we are still seen as an employer of choice, Chief, thanks to you and this team. And that's vital because they can just as easily go to St. Catharines or Barrie or somewhere else. Well, they'll make the same amount. And all of that came to bear as we were dealing with our budgets in the future and trying to be progressive with the growth, with the hiring, et cetera, et cetera. And dare I say, on behalf of the board, to commend the service. You do a great job. You make us proud. And we're getting a lot of it right. So thank you very much. And I follow up from our budget discussions, and thanks to our colleagues for having approved our budget. And that's the results that we hope that we're bringing, and much more to come. With that, one more comment I have, Len, Mr. Carby.
Thank you, Chair. And this is just to follow up on the thank you. I think it's important to acknowledge and to thank our service for leadership on some of these files which appear more national in scope, but have direct impact on our community. Here's another file around border security that the municipal police service is taking leadership on and showing, leadership at the national level, whether it's, auto theft or bail reform and all of that. And there's a nexus between all of these because it all feeds into organized crime. And that's impacting our community. So although the board may have, drafted the letter to open the door, we are confident that when that door is open, that our service or leadership here in PRP is able to walk in and to lead those conversations. So it would be remiss of us not to take the opportunity just to acknowledge your leadership in this space and to say thank you.
Well said. With that, Chief, thank you for your presentation. And I just segue right into other board member questions or announcements at this time. Are there any from members of the board on any other subjects? Seeing not, moving on with the agenda. First, the approval of the minutes from the board meeting held on Friday, January 24. Move recommendation. I have Mayor Brown and I have Mr. Carby to move that. All those in favor? That is carried. Deputations. Our first deputation, Safe City Mississauga, the 2024 Annual Impact Report presentation. Deputation from Ms. Teresa Burgess Ogilvie, Executive Director of Safe City Mississauga, and well known to us and a friend of the Peel Regional Police. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Unica and members of Peel Police Service Board. On behalf of Safe City Mississauga staff, I am pleased to present our 2024 annual report. Safe City Mississauga has been a trusted leader in crime prevention for 33 years and is the only nonprofit organization dedicated to proactive community crime prevention. Our programs and services help ensure people stay safe at home, school, and work. And we bring today's most effective and timely crime prevention programs and techniques directly into homes, schools, and businesses based on our strategic pillars. Organization-wide, here are some quick facts that tell our story on participation, volunteer, and outreach. And we'd like to say thank you to all of our amazing volunteers. These are some of the indicators of impact for the Neighborhood Watch program. And in April, we began our final year of the Building Safer Community Fund grant that has allowed us to grow School Watch. And our Civics for Kids is a very popular workbook for children teaching lessons on civic engagement. Business Watch had new courses added and we explored new connections. And after 1 year of the Peel Police funded Countering Hate in our community, we have met the grant goals and exceeded them. Our opportunities for improvement continue to include funding for the older adult senior service area, adding program staff for capacity, and to work towards sustainable funding sources. Safe City Mississauga works collaboratively with community partners to confront today's key crime concerns, such as Peel Regional Police for crime analysis and Region Appeal DME action table. We have 3 service areas, and the first is neighborhood. Neighborhood Watch is driven by evidence and data to maximize effectiveness. And in 24, we activated or reactivated 62 neighborhood watches in that year and now serve almost 6,000 active members. With the help of the mayor and members of council, we have residents from all ages and demographics participating in crime prevention activities across the city. And crime analysis supports that efforts made by everyday ordinary people can make a difference in reducing crime in watch neighborhoods. But how do they feel? Well, based on our annual survey, they are getting to know the people on the street, the actual neighborhood, and they feel safer in their neighborhood. We do have a goal of 85% or better, so there is this opportunity for improvement and continuity of our volunteer management program. The continuity will allow us to increase communication, hold more community events, conduct more volunteer training, enhance visibility of team leads, and most important, more quickly respond to their request. Training for team leads resumed this year for the amazing volunteers in the community that step up and support all the members of their watch community. To do watch activities which support the outcomes of a safer neighborhood. The Neighbors Night Out activity is always a successful event to get to know your neighbor, and in 24, Loblaws donated $100 gift cards for the parties. And there were 15 of those events in 2024. Operation Clean Sweep is our rapid removal and cleanup of graffiti and litter to help reduce criminal activity. And charity drives are a great activity for building community. Business Watch had to take a back burner due to capacity, but we were able to develop 5 new courses to be delivered in person and accessible on the new Safe City app. Moving on to youth services, School Watch is about making those informed, safe, and responsible decisions as youth navigate young adulthood. In 24, the program introduced personal safety workshops emphasizing situational awareness, healthy boundaries, and risk management. And Operation Clean Sweep was a great way for them to take responsibility for their school grounds and to earn volunteer hours for graduation. And this is how they feel about learning a few life skills, so we're pretty impressed with those. The Civics for Kids program is gaining new heroes. And this young hero distributed over 100 Civics for Kids workbooks in his school. With the ability to customize, other charities are helping us to reach more kids than we could alone. And we now have what I've called a partnered service. In 2024, we took the Countering Hate Train the Trainer course on the road, shared in the Community Award, and expanded the course to youth. In 2024, the Safe City Board of Directors approved a senior service area. This service area will examine and identify measures to reduce crime against seniors. The focus will be on senior bullying, and yes, that is a real thing, and fraud. Besides programs, we also plan and attend numerous events, welcoming every opportunity to spread awareness in the community for the community. We hosted the 13th Annual Justice Luncheon, raising money for programs and sharing in the common goal of a community safety and well-being. In 2024, the International Conference, Safety of Our Cities, was hosted by Peel Regional Police and became, for all intents and purposes, and we thank you so much, our 13th Annual Crime Prevention Conference, which is where we held the annual Hero Awards, thanks to PRP sharing the stage. We celebrated Mississauga residents making a real difference in crime prevention. Our individual Hero Award winner was Mark Poirier. Youth Hero Award winner was Selena Zhu. And Organization Group Award winner was Testimony Square Neighborhood Watch. We also strive to establish financial stability so we can concentrate on delivering programs, events, and community collaborations. We have added an annual giving campaign that allows anyone to be in the fight against crime, because we all love Mississauga. And our social enterprise, the shop, and charitable gaming, which has allowed us to add part-time activity coordinators to the Neighborhood Watch program. We did a completely new website in 2024, making it more user-friendly. We took to the airwaves and refreshed the once crime prevention management system to a friendly and engaging Safe City app. And this is the team that served over 9,000 members with programs, projects, events, and partnerships, lots of partnerships. We get incredible support from our skilled and talented board of directors and from our generous sponsors. And with that, it's a focus on today's efforts for tomorrow's impact, and we thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of comments. That was a lot of slides, and they flowed beautifully. So job well done on that, for sure. And nice to see you, Teresa and Gerald, for sure. I had the privilege of sitting on the board probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I can't remember, but certainly a lot of great work, and the work that you do along with other organizations like Crime Stoppers just really help the community safety, and certainly do help PRP. Just a quick question on some of the collaboration with PRP and the work that you do in the community. I do a lot of work with community liaison officers who do a great job in coming to our AGMs and providing response to our community. So just wonder if you could talk a little bit about some of the collaboration that Safe City has with our community liaison officers from Peel Regional Police, and how that's working, and how we can continue to work together.
Through the chair. The community liaison officers are a big help, especially for our Neighborhood Watch program. As part of our Neighborhood Watch program, we do a lot of that community engagement through our Neighbors Night Out and through our crime prevention through an environmental design analysis of each of these neighborhoods. And we always bring along the community liaison officers to have that extra set of eyes and that policing set of eyes to help us with these analysis. We always hear from communities on the specific issues that they're facing and specific opportunities for support from the police, and we liaise quite a bit with the CLOs to get that support for the communities.
Yeah, and thank you, Gerald, and through you, Mr. Chair, just really did want to highlight that, because I do think it's important, collaboration. Again, everybody doing, such a great job together and getting out there in the community certainly makes our community feel safe, and so many good programs that everybody works on together. So congratulations on all that work, and at the appropriate time, Chair, I'd be happy to move it.
Thank you, Mr. Boughton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. This won't be the first time that I say congratulations to the work that you do every day. And I can tell you that when I moved to Brampton and I had my first house that I had built, the Neighborhood Watch was so instrumental in having a neighborhood where people knew each other because of Neighborhood Watch. So you would meet your neighbors and the people across the street, and then everybody's looking out for everybody else's kids. They're coming home from school and doing that. And we ended up with a fabulous neighborhood in Caledon. We didn't have it when I moved there, and we actually did a Neighborhood Watch type of thing within. We were in a state subdivision and said, hey, we got to do this and look out for each other. And then there was an incident and helped to identify who the bad guys were who created it. So the work that you do is outstanding. I think particularly now with so many new Canadians coming to this region from all over the world, that Neighborhood Watch is such a big part of the success that a neighborhood can have. As somebody might be coming from the Ukraine and somebody's coming from India or Pakistan or Sri Lanka or Ireland, who cares? They all get to meet each other, and then they look after each other, and helps to keep the crime down. I think it's fabulous what you do every day. I can't say enough about your good work. Thank you for the presentation, and keep up the good work. Fabulous.
Thank you. Chief.
Thank you, Teresa and Gerald, for being here. I think I'm just going to say that we sincerely appreciate our partnership with you and the work, and we'll be pleased to continue that. And the series of presentations that are going to follow today all are thematically based on multi-sector upstream work. And the work that you're doing is so critical. I think we sometimes may take it for granted, but we're in awe of entities and groups like yours the 270 volunteers, can you please thank them and your board as well? I think, we have the cliche of, talking about Sir Robert Peel and Peel's principles. I'd be sort of remiss not to just dwell on one. We get numb to the one principle that says the police are the public, public are the police. We almost trivialize that. If you read the 7th principle of Sir Robert Peel, it goes on to say that the police are really have a role of being full-time paid members to do what's incumbent upon the rest of community and their citizens for ensuring that the welfare and safety and the existence of our community continue to exist. So, the extension of what you're doing and your volunteers do contribute to something that we're appreciative of, because, even on behalf of our OPP and other policing partners, we can't be responsible for everything on our own, and to have the community, contribute in this way is really appreciative. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. And I'm just going to top that up by saying, Teresa, I say this with all sincerity. I've been at this 37 years. I don't know that anybody's ever given me a more concise, fulsome presentation in 4 minutes of the depth and the breadth of what you people do. That was outstanding. And in those 37 years, there aren't many people as go back as far as I do. I think you almost do, which is hard to believe because you don't look 37, but you've been with us every step of the way for decades. With great thanks to you, and to think that you're still hitting it out of the ballpark with presentations and what you're doing. God bless you, and thank you very much for all you do. Councilor Mahoney, thank you for moving receipts, seconded by Mr. Boughton. All those in favor, carried. Thank you once again. Moving on, presentations 3.1, illegal firearms and the increasing risks in our community. Detective Sergeant Ian Harloff to provide a presentation. Welcome. Perhaps, I don't know if the deputy wanted to give us an introduction.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. And through you, Chair, to start with, obviously, I'd like to welcome Detective Sergeant Harloff, who worked all night last night. So he's operating on only a few hours sleep in order to come deliver this presentation. But we felt it was important for him to do that because this is a topic that over the course of the last few years has become increasingly relevant to our community. We continue to see here in Peel an illegal firearm seized or used every day in our jurisdiction. And really, these are the tools of violent crime that are being used to facilitate carjackings, home invasions, shootings, and homicides. And we just felt that this would be a good opportunity for us to share some of the perspective of what is actually happening in the community, but also what our service is doing to address it.
Welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for having me. My name is Detective Sergeant Ian Harloff, and I'm a member of the Specialized Enforcement Bureau that is on the Investigative Services side of the House. Today I'm going to discuss the illegal firearms and the increased community risk that we've been seeing. More importantly, over the last year, the significant increase that we've been seeing. Just a brief overview. I'm going to start with the firearm statistics in the region of Peel, and I've backdated it 4 years, specifically for coming out of COVID. Some of those stats were slightly skewed or slightly less than they should be for a baseline. Really, I'll just jump right into it here. The increased risk factors that we've identified, that we've seen these common threads, and I've identified 3 risk factors. The ongoing strategies to mitigate these illegal firearms and the risk to our community. I'm going to highlight not only the STEP team, the Strategic and Tactical Enforcement Policing team that I'm responsible for, but the work that other members of the Specialized Enforcement Bureau are doing. And then I'll break at the end with some highlights and maybe add some context to some of the arrests that we can always see in the media that I can share with you here today. So starting in 2021, coming out of post-COVID, I've broken it down into 3 categories. The first being the total number of shootings throughout the region. The second, and what I think is the most significant, is the rounds discharged and the firearms seized. So between 2021 and 2023, you see a fairly stable baseline of around 100 shootings In and around, on average about 500, and we see a slight increase to 600 rounds discharged. And then the firearms seized were fairly consistent, 134, 164, then down to 148. And then I draw your attention to last year, 2024, where we saw a significant increase. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say this isn't exclusive to the region of Peel. We saw this across the GTA with our partner agencies. We saw a significant increase in violent offenses. But the one that I really want to draw your attention to is the spike in rounds discharged. So we had a 89% increase. 89% increase of rounds discharged in 2024. We had a 70% increase in shootings from 102 to 174 from 2023 to 2024. But with that, we matched and increased our firearm seizures. So as the numbers go up, also our seizures go up. And I just pause for a moment. When I think of stats and I look at numbers and pages or numbers on a board and stuff like that, it doesn't really do it any justice because these rounds discharged are the indiscriminate shootings of houses, and behind each of these shootings is the victimization and trauma that happens in our community that I really just want to touch on. Whereas numbers here, these are people's lives that are being impacted by the shootings and the ongoing violence in our community. So the three threads that I wanted to touch on, and I know we've heard a little bit about these here today, is first and more importantly, is what I call access. So the access is really the steady flow of illegal firearms from the U.S. into our community. I've got a number of stats that back that up, and I know that the chief has touched on it, 90%. I would say it's more than that, just on what I've seen. I can just say, just off the top of my head, in the roughly 55 firearms that we seized last year, I've received back 42 of those firearms have been back to the U.S. exclusively. And the only reason I can't say 55, I'm confident in saying, is we haven't received the other 13 back yet. And again, that's just from the STEP team. So we've got this flow of illegal firearms not sourced in Canada coming into Canada through various means. So I call that the access piece. The increased availability in the region of Peel for firearms, and the second is what I call the attitude. So the attitude is the willingness to carry, discharge a firearm in the public with no regard whatsoever for community safety or consequence. I've had many discussions with our partner agencies about the cause and the effects, and I just want to touch on the themes that I'm seeing and the themes that I've spoken to some of the accused parties, and there's a common theme here, and it was a comfort level to carry these firearms coming out of the lockdowns, and that's what I found quite interesting. Is there, cause and effect? We have lockdowns for safety. However, it creates that other element on the criminal side where there's a comfort level that allows people to now say, well, now I can take my firearm in the community because I'm not going to be, or the odds are I'm not going to be stopped by the police. But that's unfortunately carried on post-COVID into where we're at now. So I refer to that as the attitude. And the third piece is really the accountability piece. The disregard for court-imposed conditions, and we see it time and time again, the pattern of repeat violent offenders out on bail in our communities. It's just, when you look at these three risk factors combined together, it has a significant negative impact on our community as a whole, which as I'll speak from my side of the house and the investigative side of the house, we absolutely won't stand for, and I know it's universal across the region of Peel and with Peel Regional Police. But based on these three threads, or the problems, I'd like to highlight what are ongoing, and this isn't a new response, it's our ongoing strategies, our ongoing response to mitigate these risks to our community. So within the Specialized Enforcement Bureau, we have two major teams that work. And I'll just talk about the Specialized Enforcement Bureau as a whole. We have major investigative teams that are dedicated to gun and gang prevention that operate in a major project fashion. So they're project-based investigations. They disrupt and dismantle organized crime groups within who choose to import illegal firearms in our community. We have joint forces operations that we use a multi-jurisdictional, multi-pronged approach with our partners to dismantle and disrupt these multi-jurisdictional groups, crime groups who traffic illegal firearms into Canada. Two things I'd just like to highlight for you, and it just adds context to it, is Project Sledgehammer, where we saw 5 arrests, 150 charges laid, 11 firearms seized. But if you look at the 85 prohibited devices, those are small selector switches, Glock switches that turn these illegal firearms into fully automatic handguns within our community, and the devastating effect that that has. So I just want to really just draw your attention to that. And then we look at the 900 rounds of ammunition seized. So this is the big splash approach that that Specialized Enforcement Bureau takes. And then Project Chrome, obviously outstanding project. 10 arrests, 185 charges, 71 illegal firearms taken out of our community, 67 handguns, 4 rifles, significant rounds of ammunition, and a great deal of drugs was taken along with that. So we call this the big splash approach. So this is the behind the scenes, the traditional covert techniques that obviously we won't speak about here, and these other investigative techniques that take out the crime groups. And I would say that this really addresses risk factor 1, about that access piece in a project form, about the steady stream over the borders. But then the next portion that's obviously near and dear to my heart is the Strategic and Tactical Enforcement Policing Team, often referred to as the STEP team. It's 1 platoon. It's 16 officers, so 12 seconded officers who come out of our uniform divisions. They come up for a year each, where we provide them with significant amounts of onboarding training, specialized equipment, and we really immerse them. And while they're with us, their primary focus is gun and gang and the reduction of gun and gang activity throughout the region of Peel. So they would be more the acute and sustained response to gun and gang violence. They are a provincially funded group from the gun and gang strategy. It's a 3-year grant, and we're on the tail end of that now. And you know, when the grant does come up, we'll be looking to renew that and certainly increase our funding with this grant. But this platoon of 16 operates in a covert manner, but also operates in an overt manner. So they wear uniforms, they go into our community, and it's strictly a proactive unit. They address community complaints, and they take a zero tolerance approach to gun and gang violence. And what I will say about the STEP officers is we rely on analytics and analysis, and we deploy in the geographical areas that have the highest statistical concentration of gang, firearm, and drug activity throughout the region of Peel. So we're heavily driven on stats, putting ourselves in the right position to be successful. We conduct proactive patrols to enhance police visibility and assist with community safety and well-being. I found that this approach identifies enforcement opportunities, as we've seen in our increased stats. This approach promotes gang suppression and creates meaningful partnerships with the community. Just on the gang suppression portion, we've been finding more and more in our arrests that the individuals that we do arrest know who we are now, and that's I wear that like a badge of honor, because they know who we are and they know that there's now an accountability piece, that not that there wasn't before, but there's more of an accountability piece. They know who we are, they know we're coming, they know we have zero tolerance for gun offenses in our community. So back to the risk factors, the STEP team applies consistent pressure, and they make it very, very uncomfortable. So we had that comfort piece coming out of post-COVID. The team's making it very, very uncomfortable in our community to carry a gun. And then risk factor 3, where we talk about the accountability piece. Part of our strategy with the STEP team is bail compliance and bail compliance checks. And we do those on a weekly basis. We don't do it consistency on the same day. We make sure that we change it up, and we make sure that we truly hold those individuals who are on charge for violent offenses, not just gang and gun offenses, but violent offenses in our community. We hold them to account. The STEP team had a record year statistically with proactive firearm seizures. But touch on this. What gets lost in these stories is the context behind these, where we see, firearms, guns on the table, and things like that. I selected 4 brief sort of 4 brief highlights, if you will, from some arrests, and I struggle because I can't offer a tremendous amount of context to these, but I feel that it's important because some of these individuals, and of the 55 arrested this year just for firearms offenses alone, we saw that pattern that I think we're all too familiar with. The first one is a 27-year-old male from Mississauga was found to be in possession of 3 loaded firearms. So a single individual with 3 loaded firearms. Not only were they found in possession of loaded firearms, but they were bound by firearms prohibition orders, and they had significant criminal history, including multiple separate firearms and robbery convictions. And then the next person is a 40-year-old male in possession of 4 loaded handguns in Mississauga. And just to add context to this, we were in the process of arresting another individual for firearms offenses at an after-hours location in Mississauga when this individual rolled up in their vehicle. And we're in full uniform. And this, we had an interdiction because of some offenses that we identified, and this individual had 4 firearms loaded in their vehicle, ready and accessible. They were bound by firearms prohibitions and currently on release, a conditional release for firearm and drug offenses within our community. The third individual is a 38-year-old male from Burlington. We found them to be in possession of 6 prohibited firearms and handguns. They were bound by significant firearms prohibition orders. There was a number of charges, I believe it was up to 45 charges for that individual. And the last one that I'll draw your attention to, we've heard about this individual previously, but I really want to draw it because they hit all the pillars and all the issues and the risk factors. We've got a 33-year-old male from Mississauga in possession of a loaded firearm, and I'm just going to pause there for a sec. Same location as the other male with 4 loaded handguns. Different night, after hours location. Pulls in with a vehicle, being driven by their surety. They are bound by a release order for firearms offenses on a GPS monitor, committing a firearms offense again, having in possession of a loaded firearm again. So just to touch on Deputy Milivic's point, an illegal firearm is seized or used every single day, and we see it across the board, and it has a significant negative impact on our community. And I just want to highlight before I close out with a small video, highlight the STEP seizures from last year. So the year before we had 19 firearms, which was a very good year. The year prior to that, was 15. So this team in its current state's been operating for 3 years proactively. This year we saw a spike, but we met that spike with additional arrests, and we had 55 illegal firearms, which is more than double 2023, triple 2022. The 65 magazines, the 937 rounds, 51 arrests. These 51 arrests are they're all proactive, and these are just for firearms offenses. There's plenty more arrests that occurred with the STEP teams, but we're just highlighting the illegal firearms. 470 charges laid. But what I just want to point out before I move on is, of those 51 offenders, 33 were released back into the community on bail. So we've seen just a small sampling of the individuals that we've dealt with, these repeat violent offenders, but 33 of them were released back in the community on bail conditions. Some, I'm pleased to say, we've rearrested for a variety of things. But of those 51, 16 were on charge at the time of their arrest, and 32 of the 51 offenders were on some sort of release or conditions or previous conditions. I just really want to draw that to your attention. And lastly, before I wrap it up, I just want to take it just a moment and I really wish the entire team could be here to sit in front of you folks here today, because it's the work that they do that really curbs the attitude, holds the individuals accountable, and really goes after the access piece of illegal firearms streaming into our community. And I want to personally thank the team for their hard work, their tenacity, and their true dedication to the fight against the illegal firearms. And as I said, I really wish that they were here with me today, but due to the nature of the work, they can't. And what I will do is I'll leave you with a small video from a press conference that we had in December, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Our STEP team is a group of 16 individuals. They go out on the streets and they look for people who are in possession of illegal firearms.
The STEP team has been able to make significant strides in reducing gang-related violence.
This is another milestone announcement in our ongoing commitment to ensuring the safety and well-being of our community.
Our government has provided Peel Regional Police with the tools, the training, and the resources they need to support this critical initiative like STEP.
The visual you see of these firearms, these are the tools for violence. Over the year, we've had 205 firearms seized during the course of 2024. If we do not mitigate them, we are going to see a continued deterioration, not just here in Peel, but right across the GTA.
Our STEP team.
I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I think my first questioner is, oh no, I was just going to comment then perhaps on behalf of the whole board. First of all, thank you very much for your presentation and how timely that you're here. You know, we get updates regularly from the chief, and when we hear them, we go over the same list. So chief, another act, yeah, violent act. Was a firearm involved? Yep. Is it an illegal firearm? Yep. Did it come up from the US? Yep. Is the individual known to police? Yeah. Criminal record? Yeah. Bail or probation violation? Yeah. And were they released? And you just told us 30 of them were. Okay, well, at least we're consistent. We're getting to the point where people think it's a joke and we're not being serious. Told the one, and I was questioned by the press, of the individual who does exist. I didn't make it up. I know the jurisdiction, that under that same scenario, released from the court for stealing a car and went into the parking lot of the courthouse and stole another car. You can't make it up. It's gotten this ridiculous. And so it's nice that we say it, but here you are substantiating it. We have to stop doing both. We have to just stop it. And we appreciate the efforts that you do. And I'll say it again on behalf of the board. And what bothers us the most is the people that we have to put in uniform that have to go out and go over it all over again and risk their lives with all these loads for somebody they picked up the day before. It's a bad game of Russian roulette. And to put our people in jeopardy and in peril, going after the same people over and over again, not everybody's going to go home safe at the end of the night at some point. And it's appalling to our officers that they have to put up with this, and the community and everybody else. But wonderful that you're here to substantiate what we've been saying, and we all have to do better. With that, we have receipt moved from Mayor Brown and Mr. Boughton. Thank you very much for your presentation. Next item up, we have presentation 3.2, gender-based violence. Inspector Rebecca Miller to provide a presentation. Inspector, welcome.
And Chair, maybe just as Rebecca's getting set up, if I could, again, I'd like to thank her for her leadership in this space. Rebecca leads our Special Victims Unit, and the topic she's going to cover today, I think, is also, in addition, we just had a presentation on firearms, but gender-based violence, just like firearms, deeply affects our community. In fact, I believe it's probably one of the primary considerations in the space of community safety. She's going to talk about the number of incidents, some of the collaboration and the work that we're doing in this space, but the reverberation through the community when an incident of gender-based violence occurs is it's incredible. And, the only thing that I think rivals the impact that is carried by those incidents is the work that's done by people like Rebecca, her team, and really all of the partners that support us in that space. So thank you very much, Rebecca. I appreciate being here.
Thank you, Deputy. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. So last year, PRP responded to 9,476 intimate partner violence calls for service. The top 5 charges, as you can see on the screen, were assault, utter threats, assault with a weapon, fail to comply, and strangulation. More concerning, however, is the alarming frequency of the strangulation incidents, with more than one woman being strangled in the region of Peel every single day. These statistics only represent those survivors who come forward and not those that are suffering in silence. In response, PRP and the Safe Center of Peel have partnered with the Strangulation Prevention Institute in San Diego to bring lead-in strangulation prevention training to our agency, Crown attorneys, and our community partners. We are currently collaborating to develop a strangulation protocol with the goal of implementing it provincially and nationally to better support victims of strangulation. The IPV team goes above and beyond their commitment to protecting victims and keeping our communities safe. Over the last 3 years, since we developed the centralized unit in April of 2021, not only have they worked tirelessly on investigating intimate partner violence offenses, but they have also seized numerous firearms, preventing further harm. This demonstrates the dedication of our team, who are not only focused on addressing the immediate threat of violence, but are also proactively taking steps to ensure long-term safety. Their efforts extend beyond investigating just the crime. They are actively working to reduce the risk of escalation, protect survivors, and make our community safer for everyone. Their hard work is a testament to their unwavering commitment to both survivors of IPV and the broader community. These actions highlight the critical role our team play in preventing further violence and ensuring justice. Just to give you an idea, back in 2024, IPV seized 4 illegal firearms and 16 imitation firearms, all used in the commission of defense. 31 search warrants were executed, and in 2023, IPV seized 27 illegal firearms. On this screen, you can see a list of our community partners at the Safe Center of Peel. We now have 24 community partners, and it continues to grow.
Sorry, and Rebecca, if I could just jump in there. I want to point out the number of partners represented on that slide, along with the idea that when we changed the model that we're currently using now, the Intimate Partner Violence Unit and Safe Center, it was just the flash up in the top right-hand corner that was responding to these, that being our police service. So prior to this model being adopted, we exclusively and solely responded to it. We realized it wasn't the right approach, and now what you see is representation of all of these service organizations who are pitching in on this.
Thank you, Deputy. We can't do it alone. We need our community partners to do this. And as you can see, the Safe Center Peel provides a wide range of supports and services to assist our survivors. Common concerns expressed by these survivors included having to repeat their story multiple times, which potentially caused more trauma, reluctance to visit a police station, and the need for a safe space for their children while seeking help. The Safe Center addresses these concerns by offering comprehensive wraparound services in a safe and supportive environment. Many of you have already heard that the Safe Center will be expanded to the City of Mississauga, building on the successful collaborations currently in place. This expansion will better serve survivors of intimate partner violence by enhancing the support and services available to those in need. The new Safe Center Mississauga will be centrally located and will provide valuable opportunities for engaging youth and fostering relationships on top of the work that we're already doing. The planning and design of the center incorporated consultations with survivors, ensuring their needs and perspectives were at the forefront of the development. This will provide you a few pictures of what the new Safe Center Mississauga will look like. The key to success lies in integration and collaboration. The new space has been designed to bring us all together on one floor with adjoining areas. This layout will facilitate seamless transitions from IPV services to community partners and enable easy access for joint consultations, ensuring the best possible outcomes for the victims that we serve. The Safe Center response team was created to provide early intervention and prevent the escalation of IPV. The team consists of an officer and a Safe Center social worker responding to non-violent, non-criminal, intimate partner calls for service. The establishment of the centralized IPV unit, coupled with the Alliance for Hope affiliation status and the creation of the Safe Center response team, has significantly improved the response to intimate partner violence in our region. These initiatives showcase a commitment to best practices, early intervention, and comprehensive victim support, ultimately contributing to the overall safety and well-being of individuals and families affected by intimate partner violence in our region. We're proud to state that in June of 2022, the Safe Center was named the best practice model in the federal government's report of the Standing Committee on the Status of Women. I just want to finish it off just to briefly touch on the human trafficking unit and the great work that's being done by that team. Although it does not fall under my command, it is falling under gender-based violence, and I think it's important that we do touch on that and the great work that's being done by them. So the VICE unit continues to maintain collaboration with the human trafficking investigative teams across North America and is recognized as the leaders in human trafficking investigations. And as you can see on the screen, it just gives you a snippet of the charges that they've laid over the last 5 years and the total investigations that they've had, which is 923 investigations. They have charged 175 people, and they have laid over 708 charges. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And questions, Mayor Brown.
Thank you for the presentation. You know, one number we found harrowing in Peel is just the number of IPV calls, going up. And I think one of the reasons that there was such support for the significant allocation new officers this year was to really have a focus on IPV, and of course the new unit in Mississauga. One thing I'm curious about is those were impressive numbers. Anecdotally, we hear about cases where there's not an officer available. And if that's the case, that's something we need to have knowledge of and how to confront this. Are you able to get to all the calls you receive?
No, unfortunately, we are not.
That's the challenge. And what type of, and I don't, and there's so much great work happening here. I hate to draw an issue of concern, but it's because we all want to fix it. First, I don't know how we change the trend. Every year there's more calls than the previous year. And I think that's a question we have to ask ourselves as a society, how we're failing. But what type of support would you need to be able to respond to every call? Because in a country as prosperous as Canada, if someone's scared of intimate partner violence, I believe we should be able to respond in that instance. And I met one individual here in this building that came and delegated a few years ago who told me about how horrifying it was not to have a response.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Unfortunately, I don't know if we would ever have the exact number of officers that we could use to deal with every single call and to respond. We are doing our best with the IPV team. Those calls that we cannot get to, we also lean on the divisions to assist us. But our team do have specialized training in trauma-informed response. We speak 19 different languages to best serve those that we are responding to. But unfortunately, the numbers increase to go up. We do participate in numerous campaigns to get the education and awareness out there. And like I said, we also pair them with the Strangulation Prevention Institute as well to get the education out there about that. But it's sad to say that I don't know if we ever could have enough officers to respond.
Well, and the reason this is so frustrating is you look at every other challenge we have, we see the trend lines going the right direction, except for this. And I guess my question would be, is there anything you can think of that we should be doing to have the call volumes go down?
Thank you for the question. I think that we should continue to do the awareness with the public to let them know that we are here. The Safe Center also does offer services where they don't have to report to police. So maybe they're not ready to come forward to the police and they could come into the Safe Center just to talk and get the resources and the supports that they need. Over and above that, it's difficult. We just continue to pick away at the work that we're doing to best support them.
So just one last question. I don't want to exhaust too much of the time we have at the board. Is I think it's very important that the public knows there's consequences. And in the case where there's been a resolution and someone's been charged for intimate partner violence, are we successful in getting a conviction? Is there teeth and consequences to those that commit such an insidious act? Or is there a disconnect anywhere where individuals who commit these acts aren't, like I know we had the challenge with young offenders stealing cars because, or even not even young offenders, it's just those being used by organized crime were not even be spent a night in custody. Is there any disconnect here that we need to be aware of in terms of the consequence of the police's work?
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, I don't have the statistics of the outcomes, what happens in court after we arrest the male party and they bring them forward to court. But I can say that a number of charges end up being in a peace bond that are before the courts, but it would depend on, I think, the case that's presented at court and the severity of it.
Well, just maybe that's something we can do some more research on, and if advocacy is warranted, to make sure that, you know, if it's known that this is not something we tolerate as a society, I think we'll be more successful in changing behavior.
Thank you, Mr. Boughton.
Sorry. Sorry, I think I interrupted. I was just, before we move on to the next question, I just wanted to compliment what Rebecca said. And, you know, the reality of gender-based violence is it shares some of the same gaps and characteristics that result in an increase or some of the incidents that we see as do other crimes. You know, I would reference Darian Henderson Bellman, repeat violent offender, illegal firearms from the US, and out on bail. And so, you know, in terms of what we could advocate for this year, we received much needed resourcing, which is going to be important because the 911 calls require frontline uniform response to go. We're increasing and expanding our intimate partner violence unit, but the advocacy piece is going to be crucial. And, you know, the board and members of the board in their positions of counsel have been really good in that space. I think we need to continue doing that. Identify the gaps, whether they be legislation, policy, opportunities for education and awareness, and we need to continue to engage on that, along with, of course, the resourcing, the enforcement, and those things.
Thank you. Mr. Boughton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, if I stumble a little bit on this, it's because I have such a high level of anger and frustration on what's going on here. if you look at the report that we just received from Sergeant Ian Harloff on the guns, okay? And then he gives us 4 examples of people who are out on the street, gangbangers with guns and bad people that are arrested and released over and over and over again. And then we follow that with your report. And we think back to just what Officer Milanovic said. So a month ago, we sat in these chambers and listened to Paul and Flo Henderson. And who killed their granddaughter? Somebody out on release with restrictions, 3 times with handguns, and shot her 5 times in the head. Same guy. And why was he let out? Because the judge didn't want him to possibly get COVID if he put him in a correctional institute. Isn't that brilliant? I mean, what you're doing, the work you do over and over and over again. And as I say, and pardon my emotion on this because I find it so frustrating what's going on. I can't imagine that you and your team, Rebecca, work every day with successful results only to have them kicked right back out on the street again. And I'm not going to say what the case is, but I spoke to Rebecca this morning. And there's another one that's going on that's close to me, that's very close to me. This individual's been stalking this woman for 22 years. 22 years. Arrest him, let him go. Arrest him, let him go. Catch him with guns, abduction kit in his car. It's just unbelievable. We now have a new old government in at Queen's Park. Chair, I think we have to ramp it up from a board perspective. We have to write to the premier again, whoever the Solicitor General will be, and we're going to have a federal election after this and say it's just unacceptable. We're losing people. We're losing people, and people in our community are losing faith in us, not because we're doing a bad job, but because of the justice system. Continue to release them. I don't know where it stops. I know of a dear friend who lost their granddaughter, and I'm very concerned about a friend of mine who may lose their daughter because of a 22-year stalking that continues to go on today. So I'm very frustrated with this, Chair. I think as a board, we have got to continue to focus it, that the actions of the justice system is putting this community at risk. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The only other comment that I have with regards to it, and Deputy, you gave me the segue when you talk about a gap. First of all, I would be really remiss if I didn't thank Mayor Brown for being at the vanguard of this issue, because every time he petitioned us and said, you know, we need more officers to get response times down, the one issue he would always cite was intimate partner violence. With apologies, I'm not supposed to, but I'm going to wear a few hats. I have the privilege of being the chair of this board, but I'm the chair of Peel Region in our social services, and I get to sit alongside our chief with regards to community safety and well-being. And the part of this file that concerns me the most is this. So, intimate partner violence. Let's put the violence aside for now. This is your intimate partner. He, usually the he, may also be your sole source of support and the person who shelters your children. Not even thinking about yourself. Okay, and they are violent. So what are you going to do? They finally have the courage to step up. My Vice Chair, Samita Kohli, speaks to the fact that we've had so much advocacy on this. She goes to public events now, and women approach her and say, I was unaware of I want to pass you on. My point is when they pass the ball on, God damn it, we'd better be able to help them. Not just with the piece that you're talking about, but do we have social supports? Do we have interim housing for them? Do we have all of the wraparound services that they're supposed to have so that once they've done the most courageous thing of all, to say, I'm going to put a stop to this on behalf of my children, more than herself. We say, we don't know if we've got a place that we can hold you up for the night, or we don't know if this, or we don't know if we can get them off the street. That is to our shame. We are doing so much better. We go way out of our way to make sure that doesn't happen. We have to make that absolute. That can't happen. Then when this individual who's the victim of intimate partner violence has more courage than I'll ever imagine in my life to step up finally to break the cycle, we have to help her break the cycle. We have to be there for them. We are working feverishly on it. We need to do more. Inspector Miller, thank you very much for your presentation today. Receipt moved by Mayor Brown and Mr. Boughton. Next item up, 3.3, Appeal Police Response to Mental Health. John Verslius, Manager, Community Safety and Wellbeing. Community Safety and Wellbeing. I gave you a segue as well to provide a presentation. Welcome.
Chair, if you don't mind, I'll introduce them as they get set up.
Please, thank you.
Thank you to the board. The reason why I've invited these fine folks to do a presentation today is similar to the theme of the conversations that we've already been having this morning. Mental health and crisis-driven response continues to be a very prevalent pressure here in the community. And I'm sure there'll be some conversation afterwards about whether or not there's things that we can do better. But I'll tell you right now that when it comes to mental health related calls and crisis-driven calls, we will never have enough police officers or even health service agencies to be able to answer to every single call. The manager of community safety and well-being, John Versluis, and Miss Rasha Sportello from the Peel Crisis Capacity Network has been invited here to highlight that we need to maintain our commitment and efforts and how we've built a community-supported framework that enables us as a collective to better support those in need in advance of situations where a crisis-driven response is required. We've also recognized the ever-growing need to address issues related to neurodivergence in line with the autism strategy that the board is familiar with that we released last year. I want to assure the board and the community that my team in CSWB remains committed to partnering with agencies like Peel Crisis Capacity Network to ensure that the experts in these areas support our community when they get called to respond to a person in crisis comes in. But it also helps our frontline. When these partnerships are nurtured and we have units that are going to these calls, it helps our front line to respond to the calls that they are experts in and to support the community. So with that, I'll turn it over to John and Rasha. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for that introduction, Deputy, and through you, Mr. Chair. I think Inspector Miller said it best. We can't do this alone. So very pleased to be joined by Rasha Sportello from Peel Crisis Capacity Network here this morning. Rasha and PCCN, as we call them, are a phenomenal partner to us on a lot of different files, but she is here in her capacity as a member of our Autism Collaborative this morning. I'd also like to point out in the audience, Miss Amy Duff, Business Operations Manager at Aaron Oak Kids, who's another phenomenal partner among many on our Autism Collaborative. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Joy Brown as the co-chair of the autism work that's happening. Some of you will know that Joy had a distinguished career with us for many years as a constable and has now brought that wealth of knowledge to us in a civilian capacity moving forward. So just very quickly to kick us off here, just wanted to give you a high-level overview of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Unit so you have some context for the presentation and the services we're talking about. So this is a bit of an oversimplification, but if we really break it down, it's about 4 buckets of services we provide. One is our mental health response that we'll be jumping into momentarily, which includes our MCERT teams, our Mobile Crisis Rapid Response, our Crisis Outreach and Support teams, and most recently, our Community Crisis Rapid Response Team, which is a partnership of CMHA, Punjabi Community Health Services, and Roots Community Services that goes to calls on our behalf that don't require a police officer. And we'll talk a little bit more about that momentarily. We also have division and community mobilization teams that do a lot of work with our priority populations, individuals that might generate a police response but can be better served by our social agency partners. And they work very closely with those individuals to connect them to supports and resources and also do a lot of proactive engagement work with the community. And these are really the 2 buckets we'll be focusing on today. We do, of course, have our crime prevention, elder abuse, and youth engagement, and I'm pleased to let you know that we will be launching a youth strategy next month that you should all get an invitation to shortly, so more to come on that. And of course, we have our diversity, equity, and inclusion team, which does a lot of work around hate crime and follow-up and reassurance with our communities. Just jumping into the mental health statistics, just wanted to give you a year over year here in terms of the number of calls. So these are CAD calls. These are calls that came into Peel Regional Police as an explicit call for a person in crisis. So you'll see these stats show there's actually a small decrease. And part of the reason that is because of that Community Crisis Rapid Response Team attended nearly 1,000 calls that didn't require a police officer last year for a mental health issue. So without that team, these numbers would have been about 6 or 7% higher actually, but we've been able to achieve that slight decrease by doing things differently and working more efficiently with our partners. I'll also highlight that even though these numbers seem quite high, we're talking between 8,000 and 9,000 mental health calls a year, that's really only the tip of the iceberg. This doesn't include the calls that might have come in as a trespass call, but you attend and it's an individual in crisis. It could be an intimate partner call where someone has a mental health crisis. And mental health has such an impact on the calls that we go to, and we're going to be talking a little bit later about some of the ways we're going to try to better quantify that in the future. As far as apprehensions go, we've seen a very steady level over the past 2 years, so about 5,180 each year. I do want to point, though, that nearly 500 of those apprehensions did involve youth under the age of 18, which is nearly 1.5 a day. And that's something that we feel we really need to focus on moving forward, because we know the needs of youth in crisis are very different than adults, and that they're on a very different point on the continuum. And of course, when we have apprehensions, that means we're taking our officers off the road, waiting in hospital, keeping them from the work that we need them to be doing. And we did see a slight increase in those hospital wait time hours, and we are looking at ways to address that number and move it in the other direction through some further work on hospital transfer protocols. So just in terms of the response through community safety and well-being, supporting our frontline officers in the mental health space. So in 2024, MCERT officers were deployed to over 3,000 calls, and those deployments can look very different based on the nature of the call, everything from being the officer in charge to providing support and guidance remotely to the officers to being called off if an apprehension or a situation changes while they're on the way. We do see that when MCERT is involved in any level, the apprehension rate is below 20%, which is significantly lower than when it's a frontline only response. And that's because we bring that crisis worker expert with us who can help us make that determination as to whether that individual requires an apprehension or not. So from our perspective, when we can get MCERT to a call, it greatly benefits our resources, keeps our frontline officers from having to wait in hospital, provides a better customer service by not having to bring that person involuntary into a situation which could involve stigma, and helps our overburdened emergency departments by keeping more people out who can be better served in the community. And we're very proud of the work of those teams and could really double that complement and still keep them busy. I mentioned earlier our community crisis rapid response team, which is our partners. So the way that works, a call will come into communications. If it's deemed an mental health issue that doesn't require an urgent or police response, that will get diverted to our community partners, and they'll go out and do that follow-up and that response. And again, that's kept about 1,000 calls off our official mental health statistics this year by getting them involved with that response. And of course, there's also an aftercare piece as part of the wraparound. We had nearly 1,500 follow-up assessments or engagements by our COAST team, as well as nearly 1,000 other interventions through our community safety and wellbeing risk referral program, which officers can refer individuals to community safety and wellbeing services who need access to supports or additional help. As far as priorities for 2025, we're always trying to squeeze as much juice out of the orange as we can to be as efficient as possible. We did move MCERT to a centralized model last year. So previously we would have had one MCERT car in each division waiting for calls. They're now all deployed centrally so we can marshal those resources as effectively as possible. And we're looking at further ways that we can gain synergies between our COAST and MCERT programs to get the most bodies out in the road that we can. We are also in the process of exploring a targeted youth response to address those 500 youth apprehensions. We have a willing partner, but it's just a matter of funding to get that crisis worker in the car with us. So we're constantly looking for opportunities to make that happen. And the last piece I'll mention is, again, we don't have that global view of just how much mental health impacts our service delivery. We know beyond those 9,000 calls, it's a significant impact, and we're in the process of putting in place a more enhanced data collection process to be able to provide that number to you and to our community and help us understand that true footprint. So these are all priorities for us moving forward in 2025. Now getting to our autism strategy, and again, pleased to be joined here by Rasha Sportello. This strategy was launched back in May 2023, and we know that the autistic community is growing here in Peel and right across this country, and we also know that the autistic community has a disproportionate number of interactions with police. Well, the vast majority of those interactions are resolved successfully. We know there's others that we could have done differently, and if we know we can do better, we should do better, and that's what the strategy is all about. So this strategy, and you'll just see some of our partners here, that's grown and expanded since then. Autism Ontario, our boards of education, our SAC Autism Center, Jake's House, Trillium, Carey's Place, Peel Crisis Capacity Network, and others have come together to really help us support a more holistic approach to serving our autistic community. The strategy is based on 4 pillars, so certainly training and education, and that's all about helping our officers recognize the indicators of autism so they can tailor their response accordingly. From a community engagement perspective, we know that families who have loved ones who are autistic are often hesitant to call the police because they don't know what that response will look like. So part of this community engagement is helping to build that trust with the uniform out in the community outside of a crisis response so they have that comfort making that call to police. Collaborative service delivery, we certainly aren't the experts in this space, which is why we have Rasha, Amy, and many other partners alongside us helping to guide that response, and Rasha is going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And I will just also say, from assistant enhancement perspective, you will be getting an update on our vulnerable persons registry, our enhanced version that's going to be fully rolled out this year, and this autism strategy is one of the inputs as a key driver to enhance our service in that space. Just briefly, some of the highlights out of the autism strategy and our key deliverables to date. Very proud to say that more than 1,600 officers have received baseline training. That's an hour online training, again, to help recognize the indicators of autism and provide them with those basic skills to provide that support. We've also done an enhanced training through our partners at Carey's Place, and that's between 1 and 2 days. And that has been extended to the front line. So what we're trying to do every year is have 2 officers per platoon take that training, so then they can take that expertise back to their shifts and be that resource for their peers. Again, we have Amy Duffy with us today, and very pleased to let you know about a non-crisis model of engagement we have with them, where we've been having officers go out on a weekly basis to Erin Oak Kids over the last year to engage with young people in their respite program, to build those relationships with those youth, build their understanding, and create connections with parents of autistic youth in our community so they can build that understanding and that comfort with police. And we've had some really phenomenal feedback from Erin Oak Kids and the parents that are part of that program. We also know that many of our members have individuals in their families who are autistic, and we have a robust internal support network here. And as part of that strategy and as part of providing that support internally and leveraging those members to create awareness throughout the service, we did launch an autism internal support network that has been very active and will be active again when we have Autism Awareness Month coming up in April of this year. We talked a little bit about the Vulnerable Persons Registry already, so I'll jump ahead to our Autism Occurrence Review process. So recognizing that there are many individuals in our community who may have an interaction with police, who are on the spectrum but may not be receiving supports, we've started a process of reviewing all those occurrences internally and creating a pipeline or a pathway to our partners at PCCN who help us navigate those individuals to the appropriate supports and get the assistance they need. And I'll turn it over to Rasha here to talk about that partnership.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. Yes, that partnership has been a really positive one for our program in the community. So just quickly, briefly, the Peel Crisis Capacity Network, we're a small but tiny but mighty team. There are 3 social workers on my team, and we support people that have an intellectual developmental disability or developmental disability and a mental health concern, so a dual diagnosis, that present with complex needs and crisis situations in the region of Peel. So we're made up of 27 other organizations in Peel that provide us with resources and supports so that when we do get connected to the families, we could pull on those supports and ensure that the family is well connected to appropriate resources to stabilize the crisis that they're in and sort of start developing some long-term plans. So the Peel Autism Collaborative, unfortunately, was a sort of result of an unfortunate incident, but from every situation we learn something new and strive to make things better. At that point, the Peel Regional Police knew that they were missing a key piece in responding and supporting people with autism and their families, and more importantly, knew to reach out to community partners. So the PAC, the Peel Autism Collaborative, has truly been just that, a collaboration between the community partners and the Peel Regional Police. where all members have been essential in enhancing the support. So just like John mentioned, there's been extensive training and education that's been provided, introducing officers to people and their families in a positive light early on, so that there's not sort of that negative stigma and that fear of making the 911 call if they need to make it, and engaging the community mobilization team coming out with us to meet families and to support in crisis and safety planning when needed. So the PCCN has since been able to develop an MOU with the Peel Regional Police, where we received the referrals from the team and were able to respond to the situations in a timely manner and stabilize the crisis and support the family in navigating the system and ensuring, again, that they're well connected to the resources and supports that they need in the Peel community, and make sure that they sort of have a medium plan and a long-term plan to move things forward and to continue supporting their loved ones. Over the last year, I can report that we've had close to 80 referrals from the Peel Regional Police, and those are 80 people, families that may have previously fallen through the cracks and maybe eventually sort of have been lost in the system. But thanks to that partnership, we've been able to sort of get connected to those families and ensure that they're well supported and well connected. The collaboration has just scratched the surface with what we can do, and we still have such a long way to go. However, I'm confident that with the continued support from the Peel Regional Police and in the collaboration of the Peel Autism Collaborative, we can continue to break barriers and accomplish lots more.
Thank you for that, Rasha. In addition to the quality of life for those 80 individuals, these are also calls that we can't measure the impact of in terms of prevention that our frontline officers aren't going to. And in keeping with our first speaker, I think it's sometimes important to provide scenarios or real-life situations just to give everyone a sense behind the curtain of how complex some of these calls are and some of these situations. So we'll just do this very briefly here. So the scenario we're going to discuss is a early 60s and late 50-year-old couple who have a 25-year-old son who's nonverbal autistic. The family was homeless and living out of their vehicle along with their autistic son, and were collecting scrap metal just to make ends meet. This father used to be gainfully employed in the community, but was suffering a number of health issues himself, so could no longer provide that support and stability for the family. The family did begin staying temporarily at a hotel in the region, but in spring of last year, the son's behavior changed very much and was no longer something that mom and dad could manage given their own health issues. And that's when multiple calls started to happen to 911. And the situation was increasing in terms of risk. The family, and I'll just point out, had always resided in this region. And prior to this point, there were no police calls. There was no involvement from police. It was really just this confluence of circumstances that resulted in this situation. So through our process, our community mobilization team received this referral in May of 2024, and continued to see the family struggling to cope with their combined financial, health, and housing challenges. So this is where our community mobilization team came in, and we often get asked about success stories that we have, and this story illustrates that success is usually based on two things. One is time, and one is trust. And I just want to acknowledge we have Constable Shane Heron here today, who was the lead on this situation and spent a ton of time working with his family, building that trust that we needed so we could make that handoff to Peel Crisis Capacity Network. And maybe Rasha there, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, so we had initially heard from the family early on in May of 2024 and had tried reaching out to the family and connecting. But I think with everything that they were going through, things were really overwhelming for them. They had declined supports at that point. And it was then that the calls to 911 started to increase. And then it was in the summer that Constable Shane had actually reached out to myself, and we'd had a conversation over the phone. And through that conversation, it was highlighted that the family had really developed such a positive and really good relationship with Constable Shane. And there was lots of trust there. And so the conversation was, okay, if they trust you, if they're answering your calls and willing to have the conversations with you, are you able to bring them to us so that we can meet with them and get things going? Because we haven't been able to make that connection with them. And sure enough, thankfully, that trust and that relationship was a really strong one, that they had no issue. They trusted Constable Shane and said, if you trust this program, we're coming with you, we're going to get connected. And thankfully that happened. We were able to connect with the family. We were able to support them. They were receiving a lot of pressure from the hospital because they were trying to get support for their son from the hospital. And so thanks again to our program and the partnership that we have with the Peel Regional Police, the family trusted that they had these two big programs behind them when meeting with the hospital, and were able to advocate for themselves and advocate for their son, who now is stable, doing well. And they've had a significant amount of reduced calls. Actually, I don't think there's any calls coming into 911 now from the family. They've been able to, because of the support that they've received, they've been able to keep their housing stable. And that's no longer an issue. The potential of harm to the family has significantly decreased because of the support that he's now receiving, and is able to have been connected to. So it's thanks to this partnership that we have between the Peel Regional Police and our program and the Peel Autism Collaborative as a whole, that this is just one family of many that we wanted to sort of highlight. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Rasha. And we could give numerous similar examples, and this is one amongst many situations that we're dealing with on a weekly basis. It just highlights the complexity, the time, and the resources it takes, and the incredible value that our partners bring to us. So on behalf of Peel Police, thank you, Rasha. Thank you to our Autism Collaborative for all the work you continue to do with us to serve families in Peel. So we'll end it there, but are certainly happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you. First up, Mr. Carby.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, I want to thank you, John and Rasha, for your report today. I think it highlights the strong value of the partnership between policing and our community agencies, and how that partnership really leans into community safety and well-being. These calls that you're responding to are not just calls because there's violence happening, but it's really is a call for help from our community. And though, policing, you have to respond, bringing along partners from our community who are trained, equipped to deal with the issues that you face is so significant. And I think the report and the examples that you shared is just a key indicator of the new way of policing, if you will, that is focused more on public safety and well-being rather than only catching bad guys. Yes, we do that too, but this is leaning into the safety of our community. Now, the thought that comes to mind, however, is often the narrative that I hear is either or, and it's policing, allocating resources, how are resources being allocated to policing rather than going to social service agencies. The partnership here is a demonstration that it's not an either or, right? Because your response here is not one just about policing, it's community safety. So what I do find often, though, it's policing that has to respond and almost justify the work that is being done by policing in this space. And the community partners that are benefiting from this kind of partnership, I wonder, is there some value, or how can we leverage this partnership and your involvement with police to basically tell the story of how policing engagement with you is having impact? So it's not just policing justifying why we are responding to nonviolent calls. It's you as community partners saying we can't do this without the police. And so how do you position some of that messaging in public spaces so that when the question comes up around resource allocation to police, around budget time, it always comes up, right? When that narrative comes up, how are our community partners leaning into talking about the value of the partnership and why it's so important to adequately resource policing to be able to be an effective partner with you? So maybe this is kind of leaning into, Rasha, if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that question. That's huge, because when people are calling for help, their instant call is 911.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first call that goes out. Whether they want to call us sometimes we do get the call, and our answer is, oh my goodness, hang up and call 911, or we're saying, hang on a second while we're calling 911 on the other end. Those are the first responders. Those are the guys that answer first, and then we get the call. That's when like the emergency piece has been dealt with. and the safety piece has been dealt with, that's when we get the call and we can go out and we can do our piece. Do I feel like the social service system needs more money? Hands down, we do, but the police system is the first call. And so, yeah, definitely, that's where the money needs to go, because that's who gets the first call, and then we come in afterwards and support and do what we need to do on our end and make sure that they're connected on our end. And then vice versa too. It's not just the community mobilization team that's giving us a call. Sometimes we're calling and saying, hey, can we run this situation by you? Hey, we need support with this. This family is doing this. This is happening. We have many families that give us a call first and say, we should have called 911, but we're scared. We hear all this stuff on the news. And so we call the community mobilization team, and I'll say, hey, Constable Shane, you want to come out and meet a family with us? And we'll do that positive interaction, that positive meeting where the family can ask all the questions they need to ask. And we'll go through a hypothetical of what a 911 call may look like, what a response may look like. Families have so many questions and are scared of asking sometimes. But when police come out with us, again, it's the trust piece, right? Whether they trust police first or they trust us first. But then we make that introduction, and families feel calmer and safer in making that 911 call. And so that's where it is important to be made.
Deputy DePatt, a little more on that.
Thank you, Chair. And the board will have heard me say this on many occasions. I often say this to the new recruits, that the community doesn't call 911 to share and ask for the police to come in because they have an incredible news story that they want to share with us, that they're going through something really, really positive. They call us because they're in the middle of a crisis. And we've ingrained in our society and our culture that when you need help, you pick up the phone and you call 911. Our officers are committed to responding to those calls. The value of partnerships and programs like this, it's not often said, it supports our officers and our civilian professionals as well. Our officers receive the best training, but they're not experts when it comes to these areas. So when we partner with agencies like PCCM, it also supports our officers so that they feel confident when they do go to calls, the ones that they're actually trained in doing, and we allow our partners now to take over, even though we'll get the initial call.
Mm-hmm. And of course, your presence here today, Rasha, underscores that, because you're here telling the story of that partnership. And so my ask then is for all of our community partners who work with our community safety and well-being team to be engaged in sharing that positive story of the impact of these partnerships which we're doing with policing and the impact it's having in community, so that it's not an either-or conversation every time where there's money allocation. It's the value of policing, being partners in this response, is actually underscored in our community also. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, Mr. Carby will move receipt of the presentation, seconded by Mr. Khan. All those in favor, carried. Thank you to you. Well done, Shane. Thank you to all of you. Moving on, our final presentation is the Delta Flight 4189 incident. Deputy Chief Andrews, Community Policing, and Staff Sergeant Hiltz to provide an update on the police response to the Delta Flight 4189 and crash landing at Pearson the miraculous, I would add, crash landing at Pearson International Airport. Deputy, please.
Chair, if I might indulge you, just Rasha, thank you. I wanted to say this is a big agenda and a lot of presentations. As we shift, Hubie, you can come up. Don't be shy. I just wanted to preface, I don't want to lose the presentations one after one. We're doing a really concerted effort to speak to big priorities in this region. You know, carjackings, violent crimes, home invasions with firearms. You heard from Detective Sergeant Harloff on firearms. Intimate partner violence, another big priority. The Safe Center South coming to us. The need for first responders to just get to calls. Then talking about our top 3 calls for service are mental health and addictions, family intimate partner violence. It's not by happenstance we just had Rasha and the team, and I know Aaron Oakes here, and John Versluis speak to it. We wanted to make sure we start this year off by showcasing our efforts in these areas. Can I highlight the fact that this year's budget is directly oriented to these 3 spaces, and there's a lot of noise around the budget, and we know it's a significant ask, but our efforts are to demonstrate our investment in these spaces. I can tell you, we continue to do things here at Peel that are not done anywhere. John just spoke about alternative response. We have the largest non-police alternative response suite of offerings anywhere in Canada. And we try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we move on. It wouldn't be possible without our community partners. The slide that Rebecca Miller showed with 16 to 20 not-for-profit social service agencies coming alongside of us, it's because it's, to Rasha's point, Mr. Carby, your question about the funding, either if it's to not-for-profit social service agencies or us, it is not an either-or conversation. It is not. And I can tell you, yes, there's a lot of focus on us and the 300 officers, but please know we're appreciative of the board's support. Our efforts to support our community partners are a concurrent activity that you can't compare. Each of us are called to do that in our portfolios. So I just want to showcase, while that's happening, we have an international crisis, a plane crash that you're just about to hear about. And so we're called to do some remarkable things all at the same time. And that is on the backs of 3,500 amazing women and men that are doing it. We just get the opportunity to speak about it. There are amazing people behind the scenes doing it. So I just wanted to preface the segue into this presentation, which Deputy Andrews and
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair. Fortunately, aircraft accidents are vanishingly rare. But when an emergency of this type occurs, it has significant impact on the police of jurisdiction. With full understanding that there's a Transportation Safety Board investigation that we don't want to negatively impact, this presentation is intended to provide a brief, high-level overview of how we at PRP prepare for this kind of emergency, the planning and preparation that goes into it, and how the resourcing and response to this kind of critical incident impacts us. I'll turn this over to Staff Superintendent Hills, and Yubi will go through some slides. It's not going to be a long slide deck, and then we'll have some opportunity for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy, and through you, Chair. I'd like to give a quick update and overview of our responsibilities and preparation and preparedness in relation to emergency response at the airport. As you know, Peel Regional Police is the policing jurisdiction for Pearson International Airport. The Greater Toronto Airport Authority, the GTA, provides us a security emergency response plan, outlines the Peel Regional Police's responsibility to Toronto's Pearson International Airport. As part of our strategic plan, our Airport Command has developed a management plan to continuously review and evaluate our standard operation plans to ensure emergency preparedness through planning with our Toronto stakeholders, other Toronto stakeholders. Our Airport Command are members of several committees, including the Canadian Association Chiefs of Police Aviation Committee, Security Committee, Canadian Airport Police Operations Committee, Toronto Pearson Security Committee, and the Airport Law Enforcement Agency Network. Our responsibilities include assuming incident command and participating in a unified command as applicable, securing a scene, preserving evidence of an aircraft accident or incident. This may include taking pictures, controlling access, and liaising with other agencies on scene, crowd control, and traffic enforcement on ground side. Most importantly, Peel Regional Police has the criminal jurisdiction of the Pearson International Airport. Peel Regional Police have a role in all emergency incident response, including and not limited to aircraft bomb threats, hijackings, and active assailant and security breaches. In these emergencies, Peel Regional Police supports the threat risk assessment with all stakeholders and may assume incident command or participate in a unified command model. Our role may differ depending on the type of emergency. For example, Peel would lead all tactical response and required for all criminal investigations. To prepare for these emergencies at the airport, Peel Regional Police participates in 2 annual training sessions alongside our internal and external stakeholders. Annually in May, a live full-scale emergency exercise takes place, followed by a tabletop exercise in November. These exercises will vary to help us prepare for all types of emergencies.
Yubi, can I just interject there? Sorry to throw you off, but these exercises that the staff super just mentioned are not limited to airport personnel. They are inclusive of officers and civilians from across the region, all of our divisions, from Nick's area, from Mark DePat's area, and from my area and Anthony's area. These are unified exercises that are full scale in scope and are a really important part of our preparedness for this kind of incident, and they happen twice a year.
And to build on what the deputy said, for example, very similar to the recent Delta incident, in 2023, Peel Regional Police participated in a full-scale training exercise of a simulated aircraft accident with several internal and external GTA stakeholders, which was led by the Toronto Pearson Fire and Emergency Services. Stakeholders included Peel Regional Police, the Peel Regional Police Paramedic Services, Toronto Paramedic Services, Mississauga Fire and Emergency Services, City of Mississauga, Emergency Management Ontario, NAVCAN, airline staff, Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, and the Coroner's Office. And I'm going to hand it back now to Deputy Andrews, who will now discuss Peel Regional Police's emergency response and resources in relation to the recent Delta flight incident.
Thank you, Yubi. In responding to this incident, it was required that PRP commit significant resources. At one point, we had 75 additional officers and 12 civilian members beyond the airport division complement that was on duty at the time and airport division units that were called in to support our efforts around scene security, victim management. We had multiple parties taken to different hospitals across the GTA, and to respond to the ripple effect of shutting down Canada's busiest airport that had significant impact on customers and the public in general in and around the airport. So we had 75 additional officers, 12 civilian members from all 40 calls in that time space. Fortunately for us, the board, through a Section 19 agreement, was able to elicit response and support from our partners at the OPP and TPS. Thank you. And we were able to have 9 OPP officers and 7 TPS officers support us. But subsequent to that 24-hour time frame, we were able to shrink our footprint and be able to get back to a more normal way of conducting business. Chief?
Yeah, if I may just top up, yeah, my appreciation to the OPP. Thank you, Natalie, and Commissioner and Chief Demke. Just in a 12-hour period, just to highlight, above and beyond the total complement of the airport division, we had to draw 82 people from within that were on duty to supplement. And then while that's happening, 200 911 calls within a 12-hour period need to be responded to. If you happen to have a break-in or your car stolen in that period of time, you're not going to hear from us at all. And we just say we can't always obviously staff for that, but the unseen one-time pressures that we experience are tremendous. That's like probably 150,000 if you include the OPP. That's not cost recovery. We don't pay them back, OPP in Toronto, for their time. That's just what we do to support each other. So, that's a 12-hour period. And, if you think back to Ridgeway Plaza, Trinity Commons, Ridgeway, sorry, Councilor Mahoney, but, that protracted period was 300,000 additional resources. Additional, this is not just day to day. And, Trinity Commons is not too far off, but I'm just highlighting, we're trying to balance the demands. we got to keep the lights on while that happens too. And I think your people do a remarkable job, but just wanted to highlight the impact of that. And we're thankful it wasn't, to Hubie's point, something more nefarious where there's a criminal element or, extenuating circumstances where it left the physical geographic property of the airport too, which would have brought a whole lot of other considerations to the forefront.
Thank you, Chief. Just to sort of wrap up, Hubie, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Can you, it's an anecdotal story, but the response by our men and women and our EMS, emergency service partners, and our partners, the GTAA, was exceptional. And there's an anecdotal story that Hubie told me. Can you repeat the story for us, please?
I won't repeat the setting, but I was I was away in the United States, and I was approached by a person that knew I was from the Toronto area and asked me about the flight and what occurred, and they didn't know I was in a position that I was behind the scenes working in relation to response and the operations. And they explained to me that a family member was on that flight, and they told me that the family member was safe, was not injured, but was overwhelmed with the response, overwhelmed with how they were treated and how the whole emergency crisis came to an end and how we as police did our job and other emergency services. And to note, the person was a retired Green Beret that was complimenting us on how we provided our service. So I thought that was overwhelming.
Thank you, Hubie. Subject to questions, Chair.
Thank you. Well, knowing that the matter is still under review, investigation, so within certain parameters, any brief questions? Mayor Brown.
Yeah, Chair Nika, we always say PRP has some of the best of the best. You hear a response like that. What an illustration of that, the most difficult situations. And I think PRP radiates class and dedication, and we're just very grateful. Hearing those costs, $112,000, I think it speaks to a financial pressure that we should just be aware of. I think Deborah Flint's doing a phenomenal job at the airport. She's a superstar. Look what she did with LA airport. But that means Pearson's growing. It's growing, and there's going to be continued pressures and cost on us. Remember some of the auto theft work that was being done in around the airport when there was organized crime there. We have to keep a tally of this. We have a representative at Peel Region on the airport board through Mohammed Lashmi, but we have federal representatives who assume responsibility for airports in Canada and under the division of responsibility. We have to, this is not a one-time instance. I just think we have to be made whole, and same thing for the intermodal hubs and the rail lines. We had difficult discussions here around policing and costs a few months ago, and these pressures make those conversations harder. And so I just think it'd be great if we could have a tally, and this is more of a question maybe to the chief, if we could do some accounting of that and say, what are the costs associated with the rail lines and the airport and the bleed over cost? And so when we could do some advocacy as a board and also as municipalities. Is that possible to actually be able to track that?
Absolutely, Mayor. We can do that. And further to your point, as part of the GTAA's planning expansion and growth in this area, they're currently at 50 million passengers a year. They're hoping to grow to 70 million. This calendar year, they're going to be opening an infill terminal, which will require 15 to 20 additional officers for us to be able to fulfill our obligations just on a routine basis at the airport.
Yeah, and Chair Nika, this is not just for criminal incidents you have to respond to. I'm thinking about the VIP support. I know that's a big number too. So.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, Mayor. We've been mapping some of these things, and we'd be happy to come back to the board with the sort of the secondary impacts of managing these big logistics and passenger and freight and cargo related hubs. Everything outside the four walls of the airport is not cost recovery, inclusive this. Our response to this was not cost recovery either. But you think about, and it is a bit sensationalized, but the the gold theft. It is directly related to cargo and freight coming through the hub, but it's a demand that obviously we have to sustain above and beyond a significant project. The traffic, logistics, the commercial motor vehicles, the hundreds of thousands of people employed in that area that are traveling our roads that have a direct connection to airline and freight and cargo. We'll make an effort. I'll talk to Deputy Jackson, and we can begin to map that with Mark and the team for the board's consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of brief comments, and Chief, on the plaza situation, just so you know, I passed a strengthening bylaw to our nuisance gathering bylaw that all costs will be recovered when these big situations happen. So that just passed with all those. So just wanted to let you know, it is not the topic of conversation, not only Ridgeway, but everywhere else, because it's important. And I don't watch CNN, but I just happened to be flipping by when this whole situation happened. And I did stop on the channel when they were covering it. And they specifically spoke in their news coverage about the tremendous work that the first responders did, Peel Regional Police, Mississauga Fire, paramedics, and they gave credit to you and to all the first responders and said that this is why we didn't have any fatalities. Everybody was on it. So it's incredible that the training that you do and probably think you're never going to have to deal with a situation like that, but everybody was on it right away. So really just wanted to congratulate the whole team. I mean, it's just tremendous. And it really made me feel proud watching it, again, on an American network that was really giving praise to us. So just wanted to say thank you to you and to all your team for tremendous, tremendous effort there. And again, it's credit that there were not fatalities, because if something was missed there, it certainly could have been a lot worse. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Mr. Khan.
Thank you for the presentation. And again, being one of the newest members here on the board and just experiencing my first budget cycle, I followed some of the discussions around how we ensure PRP has resources needed to respond to both planned and unexpected events as well. One of the key themes that came up during the budget presentation at Regional Council was the importance of building in flexibility to account for in-year incidents. Is it safe to say this plane crash is a prime example of what flexibility is necessary? And if we didn't build our budget the way we do, how would an incident of this scale impact PRP's ability to respond effectively? Would it mean diverting resources from other priority areas, or would it put additional strain on operational planning?
I'd be happy to start and then invite any of the deputies. Thank you, Mr. Khan. Yes, that was obviously a topic of discussion. I know the board has been interested in, from a budget standpoint, how do you anticipate or plan for these type of activities? Simply stated, it's impossible, really, to forecast that. If we were to not allow for flexibility throughout the year in these ebbs and flows, we would have to either obviously run deficit, or as I know some of other police agencies, they claw back service delivery in other areas. So that would mean a reduction in staffing. We'd have to probably operate under authorized strength in order to allow for budgetary dollars to be available to navigate these things. And as the board knows, there are many other concurrent activities happening. So, I think it is an ongoing discussion for us how we manage that. I think when the public hears extortions, plane crashes, 24-karat gold, they don't associate it to my car getting stolen, or it took 3 days for an officer to come. So there's sort of a direct linkage between everything in this equation from a budget standpoint, and our ability to articulate need and these one-time sort of one-off critical incidents. They're all interrelated, right? We can't parse them as two. You can't park one as the unicorn and the rest as day-to-day. They're actually, it's all coming from the same pot of resources. It's actually physically the same people that are doing it, that are going to the plane crash, that are going to the stolen car, to the family violence call. That it all starts with a uniformed officer, a civilian call taker, And it's the only single pathway to respond to all of it. So I think it is all together. And Councillor Mahoney, and I appreciate your comments on the first responders. For something that is rarely occurs, it was a surgical response. And you're absolutely right. Our partners and first responders and our people did an amazing job. But Mr. Khan, I hope I've addressed some of it, and I don't want to belabor it. But if there's anything from the team, that would be my thoughts.
Thank you. Mr. Boughton. One other thought, one last, please go ahead.
I just wanted to maybe put something forward. Given the significance of the incident, not just in terms of public safety, but in demands it placed on resources, the board may want to consider drafting a letter of communication to Regional Council. I think it would serve two purposes. First, to update them on the scale of the response, and second, to reinforce and remind them why our budget is structured the way it is, ensuring the PRP has the necessary flexibility to respond to major incidents without compromising other areas of service.
Mr. Khan, agreed, and I will take that as direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Boughton.
Thank you, Chair. And Councillor Mahoney, their comments about CNN, and I was in Mexico when the incident happened, and the CNN feed that you get in Mexico was actually an international feed, so it comes out of London. The reporting of it, they raved on that international report about Mississauga, about the Peel Regional Police and the response. It was incredible, and that's an internet. And I think, Chair, you know, because you've been on some of those on the 24 karat gold, but they absolutely raved about it. Mother always used to say, "There's no such thing as a dumb question," so maybe this is a dumb question. The fact that everybody on that plane got $30,000, which does not prohibit them from suing the airline and all the other stuff. Is there any way we can send a bill to Delta for, I mean, we got $112,000. I mean, that's only 4 passengers worth at 30,000. That's how my math works. And can we send them a bill? There's my dumb question.
Chief.
I don't know if I should respond to that one, but
we'll report back. The only other thought that I would have is, and a shout out to the team here. People complain about what government does and where we waste money. This is what government does. You just never see it until you need it. And when it was needed, there it was. I'm very proud to say this gentleman reached out to me 17 minutes after the incident and say, "Chair, you need to know." And within a day, I think we were sitting down to discuss it and all of them, especially the ramifications of joint response and mutual assistance, because suddenly your whole team's got to run here, but you still have to manage a region, including the paramedics. And then we reach out to our friends in Halton and in York. And, I mean, it's just marvelous. But it takes time, it takes effort, it takes cooperation you have to build up. But I don't know that I've ever been prouder of how we handled something that was just another day in Peel. Well done to everybody all around. Receipt of the report moved by Mr. Boughton, seconded by Mr. Khan. All those in favor, that is carried. Hubie, thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, we're finally on to just new business now. Item number 4, missing persons, urgent demand reporting 2024. Report dated January 7, 2025 from Deputy Milinovich, Investigative and Emergency Services Command, providing the board with data for missing persons and urgent demanding reporting for 2024. It's here to be received. Chief or Deputy, any comments over to your report?
Just very quickly, in 2024, we made 2 requests for information under the Missing Persons Act, and this is just a report required for us to report on those requests. Nothing else to add.
If I have no questions, it'll be moved by Mr. Mahoney. Councillor Mahoney, seconded by Mr. Carby. All those in favor? That is carried. Item 5, collection of identifying information in certain circumstances. Report dated January 28 by Deputy Chief O'Dwardy, Innovation and Technology Command, providing the board with statistics on that subject. Again, here for receipt, Deputy O'Dwardy, any comments?
There were no instances of collections in 2024, nor 23, 22, or 21.
So we just have a simple receipt moved by Mr. Boughton, seconded by Mr. Carby. All those in favor? That is carried. Item 6, Microsoft Unified Enterprise Support Services. Report dated February 13, 2025 by Deputy Chief O'Doherty, Innovation and Technology, providing the board with the request to approve a direct negotiation contract with Microsoft. Here, there is a motion here for recommendation. So Deputy, you might like to speak to it, please.
Essentially, the Peel Regional Police is a Microsoft shop. We have moved all our business to the Microsoft platform most recently, so all our employees can gain access to any of their documents or work, not just while at work or off-site traveling for business whatsoever, anywhere whatsoever. The support that's granted for Microsoft, especially around 0365, is required. We've been using it for the last 15 years. It's proprietary, and it's the only support that is being offered in this case. And so we're looking for approval to continue our direct negotiation authority.
Moved by, if there are no questions, moved by Mr. Boughton, seconded by Councillor Mahoney. All those in favor, that is carried. Item 7, Annual Body-Worn Camera Report. Report dated January 20 by Deputy Chief O'Doherty with regards to the annual report on body-worn cameras. Here to be received. Deputy, any comments first?
Just at a very high level, of course, in the province and through the board's governance, we report specifically on our program in certain areas. The highlights of the report will show that we have now and continue to deploy not only to frontline, but tertiary units that are also considered specialist units. Our compliance rate is probably, if not amongst the highest rates in all of Canada. Our compliance rate went up about 4% last year, and the body-worn camera, in its use for trust and transparency, continues to have positive effects on investigations, complaints. As you can see, that they were used in several complaints against police, none of which were substantiated. Body-worn camera was relied upon. And of course, we continue to monitor compliance. I do want to say the strict evaluation of our compliance is we have 5 criteria for compliance. If an officer does not meet all 5, we deem that to be non-compliant. That is, we're probably the only agency that does that. If you meet 4 of the criteria in another service, you're deemed likely to be compliant. The highest compliance rate revolves around late activation. There's nothing really nefarious there. It is generally surrounding a call for service, emergency call for service, where an officer is initially focused on getting to the call. And then once they get the call, they activate body-worn camera. Again, very strict compliance rules, and proud of the team for that.
Thank you. Again here for receipt, moved by Mr. Carby, seconded by Mr. Khan. All those in favor, that is carried. And finally, item 8, Extreme Incident Response Debrief. Report from the Chief providing the board with the details and analysis of an extreme incident that took place, and here with a recommendation that it be published in the normal course. Chief.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm going to invite General Counsel Sharon Wilmot to speak to this. This relates to the November 4th mass protests that we saw November 2024 as it relates to geopolitical related issues, and that was another major crisis. But Sharon can speak to the requirement as compliance with the Inspector General's ask of us.
Please.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, Board. This was filed under the new CSPA, in which the adequacy and effective standards now incorporate the Provincial Extreme Incident Response Plan. This plan was formerly the Provincial Counter-Terrorism Plan. Following some of the convoy, bigger protests that occurred a few years back, it was amended to include certain high-level protests. On a post-review, the Inspector General's office reviewed some of the public information and deemed this to fall within the scope of the plan and requested that we file this report. So the report is being filed. The report is brief and covers off the required response, post-incident review response areas. And it's fairly straightforward. If the board has any question, that's just why it's there. The only requirement on the board is that it be published on the internet upon receipt.
And that would be the next step. Any questions, comments? Seeing none. Moved by Councillor Mahoney, seconded by Mr. Khan. All those in favor? That is carried. That brings me to the adjournment of this public meeting. My thanks to all that attended for this long. It usually doesn't go this long, but it was an interesting meeting, so you got a good insight into how the service works. So with that motion moved by Mr. Carby, seconded by Mr. Khan, that we stand adjourned, and I have to ask you to vacate the room because we now have to go right into in camera. Thank you all for your attendance today.